Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of Monday, February 7th, 2022. We are coming to you via webinar this evening. We have all 5 members of the Planning Board in attendance, as well as Sierra Pelletier and Joe Gianowitz from the town planning staff. Because it's a virtual meeting, all votes will be taken via roll call this evening. And with that, I think we'll get started with the agenda. As always, we start with open forum. Joe, do you have any items from the town staff for open forum?
Nothing at this time.
Great. I'll go to the board. Do any of the board members have anything for open forum this evening?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I have one item, and that is just to say that given the decline in COVID cases, we'll go back to meeting in person for the March meetings. This decision to meet remotely was made at the I think it was the 1st or 2nd week of January when we last met, and cases were on the increase at that time. Things have come down, so I think it makes sense for us to just go back to meeting in person for the March meetings. With that, we'll move on to our public hearing items, and the first public hearing item is PB 2136, which is for 22 Town Farm Road buildings 13 and 16. I think we have the applicant with us. I think I saw Paul.
That is correct. My name is Paul Alf, and I'm an attorney from Westford, Massachusetts, and I represent the applicant.
Good evening.
And is there video or just pictures?
If you turn on your video, we can see you.
Yeah.
Oh, town engineering is also present this evening, I'm seeing. Sorry about that.
I don't seem to have that option, but nevertheless, since the last, this is an amendment, a modification of a previously issued site plan approval for 22 Town Farm Road. The board has met on this a number of occasions, and they gave us the homework assignments at the prior meetings to work with the staff and work with the fire department specifically to make modifications to the plan and to get the plan stamped. And the modifications were focused on those things required by the fire safety departments, the fire safety personnel and other public safety departments. Chris Yule is also online if questions come up that Chris can answer. Most notably, the plan was modified by eliminating what were shown as drop-off areas and fire lanes that were juxtapositioned to one another to satisfy the fire department that the two uses didn't clash with one another, and they became exclusively fire lanes, with notes that the fire lanes will be marked and striped in accordance with the regulations of the Westford Fire Department. We will continue to work with the fire department as modifications require, and this will be an ongoing working relationship with the fire department and make sure that they're satisfied with what's out there and the access they have to the facilities. One of the other concerns that came up during the modifications to the plan had to do with a demarcation in between the parking spaces on the near the front entrance and the pedestrian walkway that comes from the parking lot to the front entrance. Staff was looking for some way to separate the vehicle traffic from the pedestrians. Ultimately, we proposed some bollards with chains which would allow snow and ice removal rather than having some permanent fixture in place, which would make it cumbersome to remove the snow and ice during the winter. And we had it reviewed by the departments. The engineer for the project put on the plan that they were approved for this type of use, and the plans are modified accordingly. And the departments have also reviewed that particular use. Like the striping, if this doesn't work, we're going to remain open to work with town officials, the fire department specifically, on any modifications which may be necessary in order to make this satisfactory to everybody. The plan is stamped, it's dated today. And hopefully this particular plan has fulfilled all of the various requests of the staff and the fire department.
Great. Thank you for that. So that's all from the applicant. All right. So given that, Joe, is there any update from town staff's perspective on the 22 Town Farm Road Building 13 and 16 application?
Sure. So as Attorney Alphen mentioned, there has been a lot of back and forth trying to get the plan to where it is today. We'll just want to double check as we look to make sure this is the final iteration, that any signage that was under the previous approval doesn't need any small tweaks as we continue to have the applicant work with the fire department. Maybe some small tweaks from what was previously needed out there with the designated fire lanes.
Okay. So I guess, Joe, so I guess that's am I to take from your comment that there is still review to be done by some town departments on the final version of the plan that I see? And I know we got a notice that there was a modification to the packet today. So is there still, I guess, confirmation that needs to be done from some of the town departments on this then? We may have lost Joe.
In my view, the answer is no.
Well, at least some coordination with the sites.
Joe, you broke up, bud.
Yeah, Joe, your connection's not great.
I'm attempting
to make sure that,
I'm sorry, the packet is also freezing, so I'm having a trouble showing any visuals. Very sorry, guys.
It's okay.
And while Joe's trying to connect, I'll just point out that the change to the plan today was putting today's date on it and removing a squiggle that showed the bollard being on both sides of the pedestrian walkway, where it's only going to be located on one side of the pedestrian walkway. Other than that, there's no changes to the plan.
And is that, Paul, is that what caused the deputy fire chief to amend his comments from I think it was the 1st of February to today's comments, saying they now have no objection to the latest proposal, the second attached plan?
That is correct. I had submitted a sketch at the end of last week showing that the bollard would be on one side of the pedestrian walkway and submitted to the fire department, and then they responded in kind saying they found that to be acceptable. We then contacted the engineer. He made the change to the plan, removing the arrow pointing to the west side of the pedestrian walkway, and that's the plan that was submitted today.
Got it. Okay. Well, I feel like we may have lost Joe, at least temporarily. Sierra, do you know, the question that I was asking of Joe was basically, is there anybody else, any town departments that need to weigh in or comment on this revised proposal then, or there's Joe back.
Yes, I think he was trying to find a different place to go. So let's see if his connection is a little better.
Yeah, I'll walk over in a second. So I don't know if you were able to hear me before, but I think there'll still be at least some coordination in the field that'll need to happen between getting the proper signage in place that the fire department is looking for to coordinate with where the fire lanes will now be.
Got it. And does that, in your opinion, does that coordination have to happen before this board if this board were to consider, wanting to take action on this tonight, do you think that the coordination you're talking about should precede this board taking action, or not necessarily?
I don't think it necessarily would have to. I think that's something that could be coordinated in the field to make sure the proper fire signage is put in place.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. All right, yeah, Kate, I see your hand up. I'm going to the board next. I just wanted to kind of get some background from Joe on where things were at with the town. So, Kate, your hand's up. Why don't we go to you first then?
I just had a question because the assistant town planner had submitted some questions. So I didn't know if she feels that those have been addressed or not.
I would say that I think that the important ones were certainly addressed in this plan iteration. I sometimes tend to over review, if anything, and so it's my understanding that for the most part, I mean, well, not for the most part, but entirely that town staff is generally satisfied with this plan. And as Joe said, there may be some infield things, some, we might want to see sign locations in addition to just for fire lane, but for other things as well. But that could certainly be a condition if the board were, looking to approve this.
Okay, thank you. And I had a couple other things. One's a nomenclature thing with bollards. To me, a bollard is a really solid post that's stationary in the ground. You can either have bollards that are permanent, or you can get bollards where you can remove them from their anchor. And to me, the bollards are different than the pictures that were shown in the packet. To me, I think of those as being like a surface post. So when the fire department says they're okay with removable bollards, do they really mean bollards, or do they mean they're okay with these posts with chain link in between them?
The plan shows them as proposed traffic delineators, and then it has the brand name on them. So that's what everybody's been looking at. So I think it's safe to say that they're referring to perhaps the nomenclature bollard is incorrect, but they are the proposed traffic delineators of the type that's identified on the plan as being MUTCD compliant.
They are, okay, because engineering had said they didn't think they were MUTD compliant. I know engineering's online.
Well, it does appear in the updated packet, Kate. I'm trying to figure out what page I'm exactly on. Well, Sierra has it up, I think, in front of us here. It does seem like they call out that they are MUTCD compliant.
Okay.
But if town engineering would like to weigh in, obviously they're online and we can have their perspective here.
Oh, well, I guess not.
Well, I don't know
As
if
long
they-
as town engineering is okay with these things like the black, white, yellow, and black things with the chains in between them.
Kate, I think Paul needs to maybe be activated. Joe, do you need to?
Oh, no access, he says.
You need to enable maybe Paul Starrett to be a presenter or something into the meeting.
While we're waiting for that, the other thing I had was that I drove through the lot this past weekend. Of course, it's really tough since we had the ice storm, so you can't really see anything on the pavement. But one of the things that I noticed was that if you went to the back towards the Abbott Mill, that it looked as though Abbott Mills was using a lot of the parking spaces in the back of the lot. And so I was just wondering, is this going to continue? And is the access between the millworks and going through Abbott Mill to Route 225 still, is that going to be kept open, or is it going to be gated over? Everybody's freezing.
Chris, are you
no,
there, Chris?
I am.
Chris, can you say whether the access is going to remain open? I believe it will be, and whether there was something happening over the weekend that caused the Abbott Mill parking to be at this facility.
I'm assuming
right.
it was
I think,
Abbott Mill. Because
what
it was right
happened-
near them. Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
What happened was I think the snowplow contractor for Abbott Mill needed to clear out the parking lots, which means all the residents have to move their cars. during the day when the parking lot was open, it wasn't an issue for Millworks to have the mill people put their cars in the adjacent parking lot while the snowplows cleared the area. It's not a permanent condition. It was just temporary.
Okay, because I didn't notice any gate or anything that could be shut, so I was just curious.
And isn't the goal, Chris, to keep the path open between Millworks and the mill to get it
Yes.
secondary access to 225?
It's an access between the two projects for Abbott Mill residents. It's not for through traffic.
I can just, people like me, they learn, and I went through. I'm sure other people will learn to go through.
Well, some people obviously do, but what we're trying to do is to not load it up with devices and traffic management systems, because it's cumbersome and it's a lot of maintenance. And if it's a very small amount of cars, it's not of a big consequence. We'll live with it. If it ever got to be too much, then we would put in traffic controls of some kind. I just would prefer to avoid it because it's an ancient mill site, and I'm trying not to load it up with modern features too much if we can avoid it.
Okay, all righty. So I'll stare it on now.
Yep. So, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm not sure what happened there. I wasn't given a panelist link, so I just used the public link, but I am here and have been here. The bollards, so-called, the plastic chain and plastic little stanchions, I guess I would call them. They weren't anywhere that I could find in the manual on uniform traffic control devices, but this is a private commercial property, and the professional and registered professional engineer of record has indicated that they are, and he will be accountable for those words and in whatever form. So I couldn't find it, but apparently the engineer of record could find them as a MUTCD approved traffic control device.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, Kate, any other comments before we go around to the rest of the board?
Nope, that was it.
Great. Mike, do you have any comments?
So I'm glad that we've made some progress here. I think that, I don't know if you've asked a question yet, but I think that what I'm looking for would be, what the signs are for the no parking, the fire lanes, and where the locations of those signs would be. But I don't know that should hold us up any further, but I'd like to see that on the plan, obviously, before we finally sign. But I think that we've made great strides, and I'm happy about that. So, with the pleasure of the board, if we close tonight or if we continue, I'm on board either way. So
Great. Thanks, Mike. Bob?
No, I'm fine, other than I did look at the site for the traffic device. It does state it meets federal MUTCD standards. So I did not find it on the federal site, but I found it on the product site. Over.
Thanks. Darren?
Oh, I'm comfortable too if, we can just get finality on those, the fire lane, the signs when they're put in place. And also, as a note, if we do approve with a condition, obviously that, the directional signage and all the other signage in the entranceway and so forth will be put in this spring or when it's best, most practicable, I guess.
Yep. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I think I feel similar to you and Mike at this point. Just want to see the locations of where the fire lane signage is going to be located, and I think we're good to go here. So
Make a quick comment.
Yeah, please.
The instructions from Mike Dennehy were very specific. He gave a detailed description of the signs, and he wants them every 25 feet. And we intend to comply, and it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing of controversy to it that I'm aware of.
Great. All right. So given that, are we prepared to move this one forward then? And would somebody like to put forward that motion?
All right, I move that we vote to
Excuse me,
approve.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
Joe?
think you may need a motion to close the hearing.
Oh, fair enough.
Close the public hearing on PB 2136 22 Town Farm Road Building 13.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I may have missed this. Did you guys ask for public comment? I don't know if anyone's here for that.
Good call, Sierra.
Yep. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on 22 Town Farm Road?
And I do not see any hands raised, Mr. Chair, so we should be all set.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
sorry about
Thanks
that.
for catching that. No, no problem. Okay, now back to Mike for the motion.
I move that we close
we
the
gotta-
public hearing
yeah.
on PB 2136 22 Town Farm Road Building 13 and 16.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Darren,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I say aye.
So I then move that we vote to approve the modification to a site plan review, allowing the expansion of the millworks at 22 Town Farm Road, buildings 13 and 16, PB 2136.
Second. And I just want to make sure that Mr. Yule and Mr. Nicholas, there are pretty specific timelines that you understand what all of the explicit timelines are that you have to complete things like signage and paving and striping and all that.
Can I add a response?
Sure.
We've already spoken to both striping and sign contractors. They're waiting in the wings for final action and final approval. And we're ready to proceed, weather permitting, quite quickly.
Excellent. Thank
And
you.
along those lines, I don't anticipate that the expanded buildings will be used until that stuff has been done. Am I correct on that?
But the what?
Expanded buildings will be put into use until everything's been signed off as complete.
We're going as fast as we can.
But so that you understand that, correct? I understand you're going as fast as you can. We appreciate that, but
Well, my understanding was that the approval would allow us to use the facility and installation would be as soon as possible, but the installation was not holding up the use of the facility. That would be a real serious hardship.
I don't know that you'll have the authority to use it until all the stuff that needs to be done is complete.
Well, I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paul.
There was a condition of approval that was drafted, and I believe it had been checked off by the fire department regarding the signage going in at a later time.
Okay.
And I had made a request when we were going over it. I haven't seen an updated order of conditions, but that I had requested that all the doors in the back should remain closed except during an emergency. And did that make it into the conditions?
Well, we don't have a draft decision yet, I don't believe. I haven't seen one.
There was
Well,
one from a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah.
Right, and the board didn't want to entertain it until we had issues resolved with the fire department. So one way the board could go is close the hearing as you have tonight. And if you wanted, we could either hold a public meeting just to review the decision at some time within the next few weeks. Or we could kind of take the path that we had with 124 Main Street Lot 4, where staff drafts the decision over the next couple of days, send it over to the applicant. They can offer their input, and then we can forward it to the board, all within the 2-week period we have to file the decision. I guess it's kind of whatever the will of the board is. And I do think our building commissioner, Henry Fontaine, has his hand raised to speak as well.
Yes, I was just going to say I did unmute him, so Henry.
Yeah. Mr. Fontaine?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. right, so just to touch back on the signage, as I recall, it may have been about a month ago at this point, Mr. Yule had agreed to, and we had spoken on the jobs at the 22 Town Farm that with the weather and ground being frozen and everything, that signage probably would not be happening until sometime in April. And I thought there was a talk in the with the planning staff that that might be something that they would take a look at and condition it that way. So I just want to be sure that that's something we did talk about. And the bigger thing that I want to be sure on is the signage on the inside of the building. I think Mr. Yule had mentioned that the exit that's going to be used are going to be lit up on the inside. Other than that, I agree with the rest of the staff here. Chris has made some great, some great strides over there, and things are looking pretty good. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Yeah. The current decision letter drafts have that the signage needs to be put in by April 30th.
So along those lines, then I need to make it clear that I haven't reviewed that decision because we weren't ready to sign off on it at that point. So I'm voting to close the public hearing, assuming that we'd work on a draft decision or review that decision. But Attorney Alphen, I need to make sure that's clear that I don't know that I'm absolutely comfortable with that because I haven't read it. So my thought was that or it's up to the board, that we'd close the hearing, work on the decision. If we have to meet again, fine. If not, then we could sign offline. Or I guess we could keep it open and bring us to the next meeting and deal with the decision at that point.
If we close, the problem is that there's a ticking clock of 21 days, I believe it is. Once we close.
But I think if the draft has been completed, we'll just work off of that. I mean, I'll let staff answer that, but I think that.
Yeah, but you're saying you don't want to vote until you've reviewed it.
No, I'm happy to vote, but again, just like we did at the Main Street one, as Joe had said. I mean, I'm not going to vote saying, yes, I'm going to sign the decision. It's already been drafted because I haven't reviewed it. We kind of took that off the table, in my opinion. I'm not looking to throw a bunch of monkey wrenches in there. And I think that Mr. Yule's done some things that we've asked him to do. So I want to move this along for him. But I don't want to give the impression that I'm going to sign that decision that I haven't read.
So how does everybody feel about the path Joe laid out, which was, we close it and we vote to approve it with the condition that, this board has the opportunity to actually review the written decision. I guess, Joe, you said within the next 2 weeks, right? And that if we need to call a special meeting based on the content of that written review, we can choose to do that.
I'd agree with that.
It's fine.
Fine.
Great. So I believe we are, I believe we've closed the public hearing, and I'm not sure, Mike, if you'd finished putting forward that motion.
I did, and Kate seconded it.
Okay, thank you. All right.
To close. This is just to close.
Nope, but we did both. But okay, I'll redo the motion if we'd like.
No, we already closed and voted on the, I'm sorry, we already voted on the close, Kate.
Yes.
We technically closed.
Okay, so then, Mike, you did not do one to approve, my understanding. So
No, he had.
Yeah.
So do you want to make an amendment?
And so I amend that motion to state that a decision will be provided with the board as soon as possible to review and vote upon, and if necessary, a special meeting may be called to discuss.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. We'll move on to the next public hearing item, which is PB 2142, site plan review and a stormwater management permit at 71 Powers Road.
And I will be recusing.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Okay. Do we have the applicant with us this evening for 71 and 0 Powers Road?
Just a moment here, bit of a technical difficulty.
No problem.
I could see that Seth was here. And while just to be efficient with time, Mr. Chair, Paul Starrett, Town Engineer,
Yes.
we did issue a clean letter for this project. And we were, I haven't said this before in my tenure, but we were especially impressed with the designer's performance on this, put together a good set of plans and addressed our comments. And we were very impressed with that and appreciated that.
Oh, that's great to hear, Paul. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I'm on now.
Oh, hi. Good evening, Attorney Robbins.
Good evening. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm of Farrell and Robbins. Also on with me this evening is Seth Donahoe, the project engineer, as well as the manager of Powers Road Real Estate LLC. Mr. Palmer is also on the line. I know that we had continued the last meeting, so I'd just like to give a little update if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please do.
So we skipped the January meeting just to make sure that we were all set with conservation. We had applied. We've since then had 2 meetings and we will have our NOI issued on Wednesday. So we're all set with conservation at this point. As Paul had pointed out, we've reviewed and responded to all engineering comments. I think any outstanding comments we have all been made draft conditions of your approval. We had no issues with them whatsoever. I would just like to point out that engineering had suggested that we do a lot consolidation plan just because we're merging in lot 0 into 71 Powers Road and not to rely on merger here. And I do agree with them. I think for title purposes and just to make sure that it's really clear of record, a consolidation plan to go on record is a great idea. So if the board wants to add that as an additional condition to the approval, would be satisfied with that as well. Just as a side note, I know it's a little out of your jurisdiction, but the board had asked the last meeting about historic, and we did actually start that process early. Mr. Palmer has had a couple conversations with the Historic Commission. We actually have a walk with them this weekend. But just one note and one proposal we're already putting forward is to use the portions of the stone foundation that's in the existing house and barn to build a stone wall along Powers Road using the original rock and stone, which is very important to the Historical Commission to use all natural rock and stone, especially from the town of Westford. Other than that, I think all plans have been submitted with all revised engineering, and we're happy to answer any questions the board may have about any outstanding questions or concerns. The other thing we did since the last meeting, Mr. Chair, as well, is we had some issues regarding to the material that was scanned in initially. Some members had a tough time seeing the natural heritage lines and some of the wetland lines. So we did rescan that in, and you can see it's also a condition of approval that that line is showed on all final construction plans. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn back over to the board just to see if I can answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Attorney Robbins. Joe, before I go to the board, anything from town staff on this that Mr. Starrett hasn't already covered?
No, nothing from us. I think Mr. Starrett hit the nail on the head on this one. We've had a very responsive applicant on this, so nothing further at this time from us.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we'll go to the board for some comments. Darren, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, thank you to the applicant and staff. I think, yeah, everything looked like it was covered in in engineering's memo, including stuff that's going to be conditioned. So I'm happy with it. So my only comment would be, you know, I know Kate Hollister, as an abutter in this case, had written in about proposing to not use salt on the driveway. So I think she may mention that at the end too, but if that's something that, you know, the applicant could consider, I think that would be helpful as well.
I can, Mr. Chair. I think that Mr. Donahoe is on the line, but I think that is part of the NOI about, especially in the rear resource areas where we're going into some of those areas that they have their standard condition in there. And I'll defer to Seth on that, and we'll wait for Ms. Hollister to speak her comments as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Bob?
No, the only, I had one question, and it was actually based on the language in the decision. I understand that 11 acres of open space are to be conveyed to the town. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yeah, approximately, that's what's left of the undeveloped area is 11 acres. So we'll be keeping
Okay.
that as open space.
And that is to be conveyed to what body?
We're not going to actually convey it to the town. We're going to give a easement to across the Zero Powers Road in order to get to the trails to the rear of the port for the property. Did I miss a requirement that it be conveyed to the town?
Yeah, so on page 63 of the packet, condition 4. Or item
Condition-
4.
Hold on, let me just see.
It was page 63 of our packet. It's in the,
It'd be helpful if I wasn't in the stormwater permit. Hold on, let me just pull this in.
I'm sorry, which page was that again, Bob?
well, it's the second page of the draft decision.
Oh, all right.
It's a 7-page.
Is it a condition of approval?
It has project summary, so we need to make sure that the project summary accurately reflects what we've agreed to.
Yes, I agree. I'll make sure that's edited properly.
So that actually, my real question was, what was the situation with the trail? Because it was confusing whether we were just proposing a trail or conveying the trail. And now you've clarified that we're not conveying the open space.
That's right.
We are gonna provide an access. So I'm good on that. I don't have an objection to what you said. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I was clear on it.
You're absolutely right, Bob. So I'll make sure that's clarified.
So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Mike?
I'm muted here.
Nope, you're good.
No, I agree. I've been listening to what the other folks have had to say, so, I'm fine with it as it is. I think it looks like a good project. It's nice to hear that things went smoothly with engineering, so I'm good to go.
Great, thanks, Mike. Attorney Robbins, I had just one question, and it is from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife letter. So towards the end, I think it's the second to last paragraph, they were talking about being particularly concerned with the presence of the unmanicured natural space on the western edge of the property behind the guardrails, on the parking lot, and before the retention wall edge. And then they go on to say this area is acting as like a corridor for maybe turtles migrating, making their way from the top of the retention wall to the associated undisturbed areas behind. Crucial that no fencing or barriers to the turtle movement be placed in the tapered north and south end of the retention wall extents. So I was trying to follow that on the plan, like where
Right.
specifically they were. Could you possibly just, if we can maybe call up Sarah, the the actual plan, and if you could kind of
Actually,
highlight
Mr.
where
Chair,
that is.
this is the 2018 letter from the old.
From the old plan.
Yeah, that's why, because the previous disturbance actually went well into the resource area where we were going into the natural habitat corridor.
Okay.
This project actually pulls quite a bit out of that area.
Okay.
And we will have a split rail fence or something, and as a barrier so that people aren't dumping their lawn clippings and stuff in there per the conversation we've had with the Conservation Commission. So that's no longer a concern. And I know Seth is on the line as well. Seth, I don't know if he can be turned on to speak, but
Sure.
that's why it's a little confusing here. This was for that old commercial project.
So I guess the real question that I had, I was kind of wondering where it was going to be in proximity to the rest of the project, but they specifically sort of said in there, using like a native, seed mix, wildflower mix, and that maintenance such as mowing should be avoided during the active season. So I guess to the same maybe point that Kate might be making with regard to salting of the roadway, are there specific areas where certain times of year the subdivision policy should be to not mow down certain areas where you could actually have like this turtle migratory behavior happening? And if so, are those clear to the applicant, and is that going to be part of the maintenance plan for the subdivision?
Not with this revised project. Seth, is Seth on?
Mr. Chairman, this is Seth
There he is.
Dono with Dillis and Roy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So I can provide some clarification on that if it's all right.
Yeah, please do.
I believe what you're looking at is NHESP's prior determination for the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
On December 29th, they actually issued a new determination that is much simpler. They simply stated that the new project would not result in a take of prohibited species.
Yeah.
And as Attorney Robbins has mentioned, we have met with the Conservation Commission, and I believe their concerns actually addressed exactly what you're asking for. The prior project infringed on the 50-foot wetland offset on the site. This project does not. And one of the things we've agreed to with the Conservation Commission is to provide permanent demarcation outside of the 50-foot wetland buffer zone. And there's actually a pretty heavy line of screening vegetation, tall trees that'll be behind that. And then the area behind that, between the trees and the wetland, is to be seeded with a native conservation mix. And that is would not be touched. And as is typical in many projects in Westford, the area closer than 50 feet to wetlands is left to naturalize on its own. So we will not be going back there.
Okay. And
Mr.
so
Chair,
that-
could I just ask one follow-up question then regarding what Seth spoke to? Regarding, I think, the 29th of January decision, has that been provided to the town?
It did. Attorney Robbins had sent that over on the 29th, actually, the day it came in.
And then I guess my question would be to Joe and Sierra. Make sure you have that in the files. That should be part of the record.
And if I may, the order of conditions that'll be issued for the site, I would expect that will document that as well, and we'd be recording that as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Dylan, just before we move on, sorry, Mr. Chair. Seth, can you just address if the Conservation Commission also had any conditions of approval regarding de-icing in the resource areas to the rear, to the areas to the rear of the site?
So all of the roadway and all of the pavement and driveways associated with this project are actually outside of their jurisdiction. Although I believe the applicant would not be against a condition like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are you all set, Attorney Robbins?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, of course. Okay. So everybody from the board has had a chance to comment. I guess at this point, let's go to, I guess, Sierra, are there any members of the audience who would like to comment? And I believe, Kate has her hand up and she'd like to speak as in a butter.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Kate Hollister, 25 Vinebrook Road. Our development is in the butter. So it sounds as though the Conservation Commission will not have anything in their conditions about salt use, but I believe I heard Attorney Robbins say that they're okay with adding that in maybe our stormwater condition, our stormwater order.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please, Attorney Robbins.
Yes, I would be satisfied to add that as a condition to both permits.
Thank you. And then oops. On the trail easement, I was looking at the plans, and the plans only show the front of the property. So the trail easement kind of ends where the houses end, like right at the brook. So I just wanted to confirm that the trail easement would go all the way to the back where the former railroad bed, it ends at a section that's owned by Kimball Farm. So will the easement go back that far over?
Mr. Chair, I can respond to that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we stopped the access, just the general access location at that point, but we will be trying to work it all the way through. We will be giving an easement for access there to the general public, and we'll continue to work with the Westford Conservation Land Trust once this is complete to ensure that that's done to their satisfaction. I know that they're more familiar with the connectivity in the rear of the site than we are.
Yeah, I know it better than they do. So I was just So I didn't see anything in either of the orders mentioning a trail easement. So if the board would be amenable to adding a condition about, or something somewhere, that there will be a trail easement up to the very end. I was also going to suggest that over the years, a lot of trees have fallen across that old railroad bed, and since you're going to have heavy duty construction equipment there when they're doing the building, it would be really great if you could take some of that construction equipment down that old railroad bed and clear up the big trees that are on your property that are blocking the trail. Over.
Attorney Robbins?
Yes,
Any
I think,
thoughts there?
yeah, so on the site plan review decision, there is a condition, number 6, it says the applicant has agreed to provide public trail access along Zero Powers Road, along the abandoned railway bed, excuse me. Required legal documents shall be reviewed by town council at the expense of the applicant, so it is in there. And I'm not sure how much heavy equipment we're going to be able to get to the rear of the site, just because we quickly get into the wetland area. But our intention is to give access to the extent that we can. So we'll continue to work on that. To the extent that we can use equipment to get stuff out of the way, that's certainly the intention of the applicant, because the other alternative is not a good one.
Yeah, I know in the beginning there's a huge pine that's down, and there's a big tree. I don't know if they would have a 26-inch chainsaw that they could use, or something that a good chance to take a walk. Thank you.
Yes.
Those were my two big things, was the use of the salt and the trail easement. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Sierra, anybody else in the audience who'd care to comment on 71 and 0 Powers Road?
Oh, sorry, had to make sure I was unmuted. So sorry, I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, if anyone does want to comment, you're going to want to use the raise hand function. I do not currently see any other hands raised, but I just want to give a quick few seconds, as I realize I did not explain that at the beginning of the meeting.
Got it.
So just give me a couple of seconds in case anyone wants to raise the hand.
And Sierra, you may want to explain where the raise hand function is. I've had trouble finding it.
Okay. Hopefully it shows up similarly on everyone's screen, but it is along the bottom. I have a number of options here, Q&A, chat. The raise hand function should be along the bottom. Is that how it shows up for yours as well? I'm just worried that, being the host, that it might. Okay. All right. So it should be along the bottom.
Sometimes you have to move the cursor to make those functions show. They disappear.
Yeah, you have to like hover.
Yep.
Okay. And just a couple seconds. I am not seeing any hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So I guess we should entertain a meeting to close the public hearing then.
I move that we close the public hearing on PB 2142 71 and 0 Powers Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, so now we have the site plan review and a stormwater management permit, and yeah, need a motion to approve those.
I move that we approve the site plan review for the construction of 5 detached dwelling units and associated driveways, utilities, and site work, 71 and 0 Powers Road, PB 2142, as amended by discussing tonight for the amendments to the decision. Is that proper to say it that way?
Yeah, good for me.
Works. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye.
And then I move that we approve the stormwater management permit for 2142 71 and 0 Powers Road.
And I would add, as amended during discussion tonight, Mike.
As
Friendly
amended
amendment.
during discussion tonight. Yep.
Second,
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Darren,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
aye.
and I say aye. Thank you
Great.
very much. Okay, so that item is closed. In the interest of keeping the people who are currently speaking kind of teed up and live, we're going to go out of order here for a second, and we will hear the first of our general business items now. So that is PB 1834, which is a request for a minor modification to add a small block retaining wall that will not exceed 4 feet, not impact the layout or size of the building, and will not impact the layout or number of parking spaces at 60 Littleton Road. So we're going to tackle that one now. And I think the question in front of the board really on this one, and I just wanted to give everyone on the board an opportunity to look at this. My understanding is that town engineering does not have an issue with this, but they do need to put in a small retaining wall. And the question really is, does the board agree that this can be treated as a, I think, a field change? Is that right, Joe?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, oh, go ahead, Joe.
yes, that's correct. I mean, Paul Sterrett is on here as well to speak for engineering, but generally speaking, say this was under construction already, this would likely be treated as something that would just be considered a field change, given it's a retaining wall that's under 4 feet. It doesn't trigger the need for a building permit. It's not impacting the size of the building. It's not impacting any kind of layout of the parking, any way vehicles get into and out of the facility. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Paul, but.
Nope, we didn't see anything here that out of the ordinary. And as you said, that they would go through the building commissioner if it was over 4 feet for permit, but I think this was an appropriate field change.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Attorney Robbins, did you have anything you wanted to comment on, or?
Yeah, I put this, I had submitted this comparison plan just so you could clearly see the location of the retaining wall. It has no impact to any site design whatsoever. It's less than 3.5 feet along most of it. It'll be screened from the roadway. As this is not the landscape plan, but you can see there's a generator pad right in the front of the property, which is shielded surrounded by trees. So it'll be surrounded by trees from the front of the property line up along Littleton Road. And you won't be able to see it from the abutter side of the property, maybe the top of the blocks, but really where the blocks start is where their dumpster pad is, with a fence all the way around it. So it won't be viewable from the abutter side. And Sierra, can you just put up the rendering if it's easy? And from the other side, coming from Chelmsford down towards Westford, the only thing you'll be able to see is structure. This is a 3-story structure. It's going to be on the side of the structure, and you won't be able to see anything traveling the other way. So really, this has no impact to anything, really just a minor field change that has no impact to the overall site design.
Great, thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions or feedback? I guess we can go around the horn real quick. Darren?
No, I think it's a minor change.
Yep. Mike?
Agreed, minor change.
Bob?
Yeah, my only concern was, and I just want to make sure that it cannot be seen from Littleton Road, because this is in the Route 110 master plan area of concern. And we do kind of have guidance in there that we offer everyone with respect to these kind of walls. So it needs to be fully screened. It should not be visible anywhere on 110. So if that's actually what's going to happen, I'm fine with the change.
Okay. And Kate?
I echo what Bob said. Otherwise, I'm fine.
Okay. And so Attorney Robbins, you're confirming that it's the retaining wall won't be visible from 110?
Yeah, really the only way you'd be able to see the block wall is, again, this is only 3.5 feet in height. And really the only way you'd be able to see it, this would be the view shed coming from Chelmsford to Westford, and it'd be behind the area of the structure, as you can see on the plan. And when you're on the other side of that lot line, you're at Neshoba Pizza's parking lot where their staff parks, and then you're next to their dumpster pad. So you'd actually have to go behind their dumpster pad in order to see it. And the front property, right at the front of the property where you can see these two people walking along the sidewalk a little further back there at the edge of the building, that will actually be where the generator pad is. And like I said, the generator pad is going to be surrounded by trees. So it's our intention to completely screen this from 110.
Got it.
Yeah, and just so that I'm clear, Dylan, the guidance from the 110 master plan is that all walls should be constructed of natural rock materials on 110.
Got it. Got it. All right. So it sounds like it should not be visible from 110. So given that, is there a motion to approve this as a field change?
So moved.
I'll make that motion. So moved.
I'll second.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Kate,
aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Darren,
Aye.
and I say aye. Thank you very much. Yep. All right, we will go back into our public hearing topics. So we are on public, let's see, public hearing item number 3, which is PB 2201, a site plan review. Yep, site plan review and a special permit for a major commercial project at 5 Makepeace Road, as well as a stormwater management permit. I believe, is there a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2201?
So moved.
So moved. Second,
A motion and a second. All those in favor, Kate,
aye.
Darren,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
and I say aye. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2201?
So moved.
Second,
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob,
aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Darren,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I say aye. With that, we are open. Joe, do you have any comments before we go to the applicant? No?
No comments at this time.
Great. Then let's go to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Alphen. I'm an attorney from Westford, Massachusetts. We represent Charlie Gaudette, trustee of 5 Makepeace Road Realty Trust. He's the owner of the parcel known as Lot 14-13 Makepeace Road. Our client intends to develop a property for use by tradespeople to park their vehicles and store their tools, equipment, and inventory. The premises are located in the IC district. The proposed use is called wholesale trade, which is a permitted use in the IC district. Our client's proposed use of the premises will not include retail transactions. So the principal users will be non-retail tradespeople who are principally engaged as contractors and subcontractors performing work and/or delivering parts or equipment at other locations. The board doesn't get a lot of experience with the IC district, so if you have your table of use regulations nearby, you might take a look at them and see that there aren't very many uses permitted in the IC district. For example, no residential uses are permitted as right. They would require a special permit for any residential use in the property. And the uses permitted by right are items like business or professional office, printing establishment, a newspaper, general service establishment, research office park, removal of sand and gravel, quarrying, mining, light manufacturing, and wholesale trade. And wholesale trade is the category that we are under. We communicated with the building inspector prior to submitting the applications to the planning board to assure ourselves that we had properly defined the use and we had properly determined that it was a permitted use. The proposed development is a 12-bay, 22,200 square foot building. The building will be served by on-site septic and municipal water. The project will also include the construction of an access driveway and parking areas. Several retaining walls will be constructed due to the topography of the site. Drainage pipes, catch basins, and infiltration practices will be constructed to manage stormwater runoff from the buildings and the pavement. Underground utilities for electricity, cable, and telephone will be installed and connected to a pole on Makepeace Road. The tradespeople generally have difficulty finding appropriate locations for the storage of tools and the parking of their vehicles because of the high cost of real estate and rental costs, combined with the prohibitions on using residential properties for parking of vehicles or operating businesses in residential zones. For example, the Westford zoning bylaw regulates the accessory parking of commercial vehicles in residential districts as follows. Parking of one commercial vehicle in the storage so as to not to be visible from any street or way of not more than 2 additional commercial vehicles. Nothing herein shall be construed to prohibit the parking or storage of farm vehicles. In other words, you can only store 1, maybe 2 commercial vehicles on your property, and as you know, you can't conduct a business on your residential property except under special permit circumstances with limitations. So there's a need for this type of location. To meet the requirements under the bylaw for a major commercial project, we equip the site with cut-off luminaries confining direct rays to the site with fixture mounting not higher than 20 feet. To reduce noise, we point out that the subject property is located in the IC district. We've gone over some of the other uses which are permitted in the IC district, and this proposed use should result in less noise than other permitted uses. The site is not intended to be used by pedestrians or by retail customers. The site will be principally used by the occupants thereof for the parking of their vehicles and storage of equipment. There's a landscape plan that was submitted, the storm management plan, and the detailed drainage information that was submitted. And before Jeff Brem gets into the detail of those plans, I'll also point out that the property is currently improved with a 2-story dwelling in deteriorated condition that should be torn down and a driveway. The landscape plan submitted with the application proposes that the perimeter of the site be vegetated with trees, shrubs, and perennials. The building will be set back approximately 330 feet from the public way and will be offset from the frontage on Makepeace Way. Traffic and noise will be minimal and less impactful than the other permitted uses in the IC district should someone had wanted to desire to use the property for some of the other IC uses in the district. So unless you have questions regarding that, the next speaker will be Jeff Brem from somewhere in the United States, who will discuss the site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Mr. O'Connor, do you want to ask the board if they want to talk to Mr. Alphen before I go?
Yeah, quickly, any questions from the board for Mr. Alphen before we go to Mr. Brem? No. All right, go ahead, Mr. Brem. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. I do understand what we talked about with respect to the tradespeople. I guess my one concern is there are certain trades that before they go out on site require fabrication to be done in a shop. So I'm thinking of tradespeople such as sheet metal work, wrought iron work. And so I just want to understand, is there language that would prohibit that? Or how would that be handled if that kind of a business wanted to take over one of these bays? And I guess I differentiate that from a plumber or an electrician. I understand they don't do fabrication. They simply go off and do all the work on site.
So the definition of zoning bylaw is wholesale trade. How would you distinguish somebody who is putting together some sheet metal, for example, an HVAC contractor, versus somebody who is a plumber? How would the HVAC contractor not be a wholesale trade?
Well, I guess I'm asking because we have some conflicting descriptions here that said that none of the work would be done in this site, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Did I say none? You know, I think there will be some sub-assembly. I think you're absolutely correct that there are certain tradespeople that do perform some sub-assembly out in the site, off-site, which
Yeah.
could occur at this. Yes, I don't want to discount the possibility that there be some sub-assembly here. But the principal amount of their work would be conducted at customers' sites, not here. I think that's the difference.
Okay, and I raised that because then we have to consider, I guess, noise. And I guess I'm just concerned about the immediate abutters, which are numbers 7 and 9 Makepeace Road. So I raised that to make sure that we've addressed, this board has addressed any concern for noise outside of what we expect to be the noise associated with vehicles and the loading of vehicles. Over.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board for Attorney Alphen? Looks like none. So I guess let's move on, Mr. Brem.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Jeffrey Brem, office is in Westford, Mass. As Paul said, I'm working remotely. So hello. First of all, let me locate you on this property. It's on Makepeace Road, as you can see on the top of the plan, the north side of the plan. It directly abuts US Route 3 to the west. To the north is a fence company in the industrial zone. To the east is those 2 units, 2 properties, residential properties that you mentioned just a minute ago, Mr. Schaefer. And then to the further back to the east and the south is the Hawk Ridge Development Condominium Project. There is an existing home on the property, as Paul mentioned, that will be raised, and that is towards the north, towards the front. You'll see the expansion of the lighter colored green. That's where, if you saw the existing condition plan, which you don't need to get Sierra, but that's where that home is located, and it will be removed, and that area will remain as open space. Otherwise, as you can see, the site is pretty treed. Other than that open area where it's green, pretty much the rest of the site is under tree canopy vegetation. The soils are excellent. There's been soil testing done throughout the site by Jeff Hannaford's company, Norse Environmental, and the soils are all 2 minutes an inch or better, pretty deep water table as well. The topography, so that those haven't been really challenges, but as you can see by all the wavy contour lines starting from Route 3 and going westerly, the site has some grade challenges, and so there are some retaining walls that will be designed and permitted under the building department along the westerly line and the northerly line adjacent to the rear of those 2 residential lots on Makepeace. And that's all detailed out on the plan. As far as access goes, as Mr. Alphen said, we're going to come off of Makepeace Road. There is a comment from staff while I mention it. They said the access cannot be wider than 30 feet. I do want to talk to them whether we need a waiver from that or the language needs to be interpreted a different way. Our curb cut is for industrial vehicles, so it's a fairly wide curb cut. But once you get in, the throat itself is only 24 feet, which is pretty much your standard road width or access width. You come in, you have 2 parking bays. This is really for excess parking because the facility has, I think, 90 spaces, and less is really is required, but that includes some spaces in the building. They expect pretty much 1 or 2 or 3 vehicles per bay. There's 12 bays. You're talking really probably more like 36 cars. We've provided well over that, but we comply with the regulations. Around the site, we get back to the rear portion of the site, as Paul mentioned, over 300 feet back from Makepeace Road, and there are access ways to 12 units of 12 industrial units, or not even industrial. Let me go back even further. Sorry about that. 12 wholesale trade units. Each one will have its own access to the paid parking area, and there'll be garage doors, garage door and a man door in every unit, and that one of the parking spaces is inside that unit. That's required. Around the building, there's full access for fire department. As you can see, that was another challenge that we met. And all of the roof runoff will go, and much of the parking runoff will go to the rear where you see that grid area. It looks like a grid. Those are Caltech chambers. There's over 100 of them there, and they are taking care of the roof runoff as well as much of the rear of the parking. That goes in there. As far as the rest, the front of the site goes, that will drain. It all drains towards Makepeace. And we have a infiltration basin that's in a kind of a lime green on the far right corner, the northwest corner of the site, just adjacent to the parking and the access way. And that is an infiltration basin. All this is going to be reviewed by your engineering department in the coming weeks. As far as the septic systems, Paul mentioned, and those are in front of units, it's hard for me to see on my screen, 7 and 8 and 5 and 6. There are 2 rectangles there representing the septic systems. So all the units will pipe through and discharge into those 2 septic systems. Paul already mentioned the lighting, and he also mentioned the landscape plan that was done by Brooks Lemon. There is an anomaly on this site that I should tell you about. There is a pipe that's discharging from Route 3 onto the property, and the flow finds its way in a northerly direction to the rear of those 2 units on Makepeace. That is going to now be an improvement to those properties, because we're going to pick up that flow, that pipe flow, in a structure, a drainage structure, an inlet, and then we're going to pipe that to our infiltration system. So whereas currently they're getting some stormwater discharge from Route 3, there will be I rarely get to say this, but there will be an improvement to the neighbors to the north, where we're going to take away that discharge and put it into the ground. I don't want to belabor the rest of the plan. We have not received engineering review as typical until after the first hearing, and we will probably get more into detail at further hearings on those items. So let me end there and ask for any questions from either Paul or myself.
Great, thank you, Mr. Brem. Okay, let's get some initial comments from the board, and then we'll go to the audience to see if there's members of the public who'd like to comment on this application. So to start, I guess, Bob, you're first in my view. So Bob, do you want to go first?
Sure. So my first question is, how old is the existing dwelling that is on the property? Do we have a date?
The staff said it will be subject to a demo permit. I mean, a demolition delay permit.
Okay, that's the nature of my question. That's fine. Just want to make sure. Can you describe how tall this structure is going to be? And is it possible to provide us with some drawings to show what the facade would look like?
There are architecturals that are part of the plan, I believe.
Did I miss that?
There may have just been floor plans. If you give me a second.
I think it was just floor plans. I didn't see anything that looked like the side view of the building. I didn't see anything in there.
Either.
Right, that's what I recall as well.
I have one. I don't know if you want to share screens. Sierra, is that something you would like to do?
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can, are you able to share your screen as of right now, or do I may need to promote you to a panelist, so.
I do not have any way of showing me or the screen or anything like I usually do.
Okay.
It needs to go in our packet anyway, if you wanted to wait until next time.
Now, Mr. Brem, are you able to, do you have the share screen option now?
No. No, it's a disabled participant screen. You gotta enable it. When you can see me now.
Anyways, I guess I would like to make sure that we address what the view of this structure would look like from number 7 and number 9 Makepeace. I do know from looking at Google and other sources, I think the rear of those properties are heavily vegetated, but I don't know what the height of this structure is, so it's hard to make that determination.
I can tell you the height because I have it on this view. 22 feet to the soffit. And then there's it's like a pretty shallow roof pitch. But I don't have that on this plan. Oh, sorry, I do. 28 feet to the peak.
Okay.
And I apologize, but I believe the way that this is set up, I think you may only be able to share the screen if you are the host. So
Okay.
unfortunately, that limits
Right.
the panelists. So I apologize for that.
So we will submit that in
Yeah.
the packet, Paul, I presume, right? That's not a problem, Paul?
Yeah, that's fine, of course.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, and I guess my last question is, looking at this layout, do we need to worry about the snow storage, snow clearing of this site and where the snow would be stored? Has that been adequately allowed for with the pavement that you have proposed?
Yes, there are snow storage areas in those green strips as well. There's lots of snow storage all around. They're on the plans.
They are there, okay.
All right.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Darren?
Thanks. So, yeah, I would echo the concerns of the residential abutters and see what we can do to accommodate, their concerns. My question really is on the parking. I guess, there are 90 plus parking spaces here, which just seems a lot given the use of the building. So I understand we have standards in, the zoning regulations, but, even if we say there's 4 vehicles per bay, we're looking at about 48 and we've got 90 plus here. So I'm just wondering, is there a way like this lower sort of these spaces when you're coming up the entranceway, which are seeming to be sort of extra spaces? Could they be allowed for if there's a change of use and put in later if needed or something like that? I just think I hate to put in those spaces right now and just have extra, pavement if it doesn't have to be there. So just something, I don't know if there's something we can do. If not, I just think I'd like to be able to consider that a little bit.
Certainly. Now, the 90 spaces includes spaces inside the building itself, 12 units inside the building.
Okay.
So there's really, 78 spaces and 57 are required.
Yeah.
By wholesale trade. I think the reason why this came about, just to give you some background, is there was at the beginning of the project, there was some discussion of what it should be entitled from a zoning point of view, whether it's wholesale trade or professional services. Professional services, I think, is 1 space per 200, and wholesale trade has 1 space per 400. So there was that difference at the beginning of this plan when it was created. So that may be why. Perhaps if you want, you could have reserve spaces. That's been done by this board in the past, where we show them, but they're not built.
Yeah, I would prefer that, especially in that entryway. Just, listen, if we need it, we can do it later, but if we can condition it that way somehow, I just think it's a lot of sort of impervious surface that doesn't necessarily have to be there.
Understood. It makes it easy because the drainage is already designed accommodating it. So if there was a need and the building inspector said you need to get some more spaces out here, it's a pretty easy lift at that point.
Right. Other than that, no other questions for me at this point.
Great. Thanks, Darren. Mike?
Yeah, thanks. So I will tell you that I went looking today for Makepeace Road and didn't realize till I got home that it was Dunstable Road. It's Makepeace Road. I kept looking for some road off of Dunstable that went along the highway. It makes a lot more sense now to look at a map. Really, I don't have anything, Darren. I thought the same thing about the parking spaces, but I looked further and it seems to be that they're kind of behind the building. A majority of them, I agree with the ones up front, but I like that they're behind the building. And my assumption is that they'll get used during the day where people will come in, park their car, take their work truck out, and there won't be overnight parking, and hopefully just during business hours when people are at work, those cars may be parked out front. But again, if they could be parked behind it, even better. But I look forward to seeing the progress on this, and I think it's going to be a pretty good project.
Thanks, Mike. Kate?
Yeah, I echo what the others have stated, if only 57 are required and that you are submitting this as a wholesale or whatever it's called, warehouse.
Wholesale trade, sorry.
Wholesale trade, then definitely I would want to get rid of unnecessary parking spaces. I echo Bob's comment about potential noise, especially since in the narrative that was submitted, it mentioned how trades like carpentry could go in here, and I could see, you claim it's only going to be for storage, but I could see somebody renting one of these spaces and doing prep work, doing construction in their space, their bay, or maybe also doing something outside during the nice weather. So I'm concerned about the potential noise and getting to the abutters. Because this is a major commercial, then there's a noise requirement. I echo the concern about runoff to the neighbors, so I look forward to engineering's review because your pavement goes so close to the edge and there is a downward slope unless you're going to be bringing it up or something. And as far as the plans, you have the dimensional requirements, but you also need to satisfy requirements in Appendix C. And so you just, on your plans, you will need to show the calculations that you have a minimum of 30% open space and that the building area is a maximum of 25% of the site. And so those are my things, the parking spaces, potential noise, and runoff to the neighbors. Over.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the rest of the board has summarized well the concerns that I had. I think, Bob touched on potential visual intrusion, so I'll look forward to seeing the facade or the diagrams of the proposed building structure so we can figure out whether or not the existing, I guess, screening or camouflage between the other homes on Makepeace Road and this property are adequate to sort of keep the visual intrusion to a minimum of the building. I would agree with a reduction in the parking spaces if they're not required. We should probably encourage fewer of those. And I think the noise point is well taken. So I'm not sure what we can do there to condition maybe if people are going to be doing that kind of construction, at least to make sure that they're doing it inside their space with the bay door closed, for example, might be a requirement that could be imposed on the on the property. But those are the comments I had, and I think the rest of the board summarized them nicely. So with that,
Darren, I just wanted to follow up. So I like what you just said, but I think something along the lines of any fabrication activities, we have to restrain it. It has to occur inside and must occur with all doors closed.
Right.
Not just the bay door, but the man door as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But would you also require some kind of insulation to muffle the noise?
I guess, yeah, that's a good point, Kate. I think I'd like to see a little bit more information in the future on the structure and what its soundproofing characteristics would be, as including the doors and walls. And making sure that we investigate all possible conditions to limit the spillage of noise onto the abutting properties. And I did highlight a 7 and 5 Makepeace, but there are other abutters as well along the perimeter there, and they need to be factored in as well.
Right.
Back to you.
Yep. Okay. So those are my comments. So I think at this point the board has commented. Sierra, do we have members of the audience who would like to comment on 5 Makepeace Road? And again, as a reminder to people who might be in the audience, in order for Sierra to know you'd like to make a comment, you need to use the raise hand function, which you can find at the bottom of this Zoom meeting window. I think it's the second to the right hand button on the bottom.
Sorry, I was muted. We do have one attendee raising their hand, Mr. Chair, so I'm going to allow them to speak.
Great.
Let me see.
Hey, this is Nilesh Rana from 7 Makepeace Road. Can you hear me?
Yep. Good evening, Mr. Rana.
Good evening. Thank you for all your comments. I have submitted list of my questions concerning safety, privacy, noise, and property value. I would urge the board to look at those questions, and if possible, please help me out there. Right, I have sent those questions to Erin and Joe. Unless we want to go through all those questions right now, but I think I would say if board can look at that and come back with their response, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean,
Can I get those questions forwarded to the engineering department, Mr. Chair, if that would be helpful?
I think yes, all around. Those, as far as I can tell, and Joe and Sierra, keep me honest here, I think those comments were just included in an update to the packet that we received today. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had a number of comments come in primarily over the weekend, so the vast majority of things that were added were quite new.
Yep. So I assume no issue in getting those concerns forwarded to the engineering department then, yeah?
Absolutely not. We can send them all of those. Yep.
Awesome. And just Mr. Rana, before we get back to your, I mean, you still have the floor. I just wanted to comment that I did have a chance to briefly look at some of them, or at all of your questions. I think some of them we can sort of directly address. Others, it may be slightly beyond the purview of this board, but we will work to get your questions answered through the proceedings of this application and this public hearing process.
Thank you very much.
Did you have some specific comments that you'd like to make while you have the floor?
No, I think board covered a lot of.
We can send more emails to address more of the questions from what we have heard so far.
So this is my wife speaking. She was saying that if we have more questions, we can again raise those and send it through the email. That would be great.
Yep. And in case, in case you don't, follow sort of these kinds of proceedings when they don't directly affect your property, just, keep your eye on the upcoming agenda items. This item we may be hearing, I assume we'll be hearing this again in our next meeting, since we don't have one for a month. It's conceivable we'll have 2 or 3 more discussions on this topic. So just, pay attention to the agendas, and when it's on the agenda, feel free to join so that you can kind of hear the whole proceeding and offer your comments throughout the process.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Sierra, I don't see their comments in the packet. Did you just send it in an email?
No, you had to go in and download. You'd had to gone in and downloaded the packet again today, Kate. So if you go back.
I did. I have the. So what page is it on?
I'm on page 97 of 444.
Yeah, 97.
Oh, okay. I'm way too far then. Thank you.
Yep.
Big packet, Kate.
Well, it's hard to know what's the new stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Sierra, is there anybody else with their hand up who would like to comment?
I am not seeing any other hands up, Mr. Chair.
All right. Okay. So Mr. Starrett, I assume that now with this feedback from an abutter, as well as initial comments from the board, is there going to be any issue with the engineering department having a review of this in time for our, please help me, Joe or Sierra, I think it's March
7th.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
that's not likely to work. I mean, the HydroCAD analysis alone is going to be pretty extensive on this project. I would recommend that the applicant consider a later meeting, but they can certainly take their chances that the department will get it done, but
okay,
I'm not confident, given we have a lot of other things going on right now. So I'm not confident that we can get this done for the 7th.
Got it. So how would you, how does your confidence look, Mr. Starrett, if we look out to the 21st, which would be the second meeting in March?
Yeah, that's I think that's more doable.
Okay. Mr. Alphen.
And I'll be in contact with the planner routinely as we get going, and I can update that for the applicant if for some reason we get a breakthrough.
Yep.
But
got it. Mr. Alphen, how are you feeling on behalf of the applicant? Do you would you like us to continue to the 7th and we can see if the engineering department finds some time, or would you be okay continuing to the 21st of March meeting?
If we continue to the March 7th meeting and engineering has not completed its review, or we've had an opportunity to respond to it, can we continue without reopening? I mean, without taking any testimony? Just get a note into Joe and Sierra that we want to move to the next meeting?
You can always do that if you don't mind, going back and forth with town staff and continuing if we're not prepared to, to kind of carry this forward.
I enjoy the interaction with town staff. I'd love to go back and forth with them if need be.
Fantastic. So given that, I guess we'll continue to the 7th. And I assume in that packet, one way or the other, Mr. Alphen, then can I ask that even if we are continuing without discussion, if we could get a preview of that facade in that packet, even if we continue without discussion, if the board could kind of have a look at what the building's going to look like, so we can kind of consider visual intrusion, that'd be appreciated.
That's a goal.
Excellent. Great. Well, given that,
I move that we continue this to 3/7. We're meeting in person.
Yep.
But pay attention in case it changes back to webinar.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, a motion and a second to continue this discussion, this public hearing item to March 7th. All those in favor say aye. Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. Great. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me get reoriented on the agenda here. Great. Okay, so we're on to our 4th public hearing item. That is PB 20. I'm sorry.
Sorry, rabbits.
Oh, yes. PB 2203, a site plan review for 2 Park Drive, Unit 1. This is a change in use from business to veterinary hospital or clinic and boarding of animals, specifically rabbits. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice?
Moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I say aye. Is there a motion to open PB 2203?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Kate?
I'm just wondering, there was a request for a reduction in the fee. Does that have to be done before we open? Or it kind of part of the discussion?
Well, Joe, can we open and then discuss fee, or do we need to discuss fee before we open?
I don't necessarily think it has any weight bearing one way or another. So whichever you prefer to do, Mr. Chair.
I think you've done it both ways in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on PB 2203 say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, shall we have a conversation about the application fee?
I'll begin. They are a nonprofit. I'm certainly willing to reduce the fee down to the minimum 300. I don't know how much work this will take by staff. Maybe we should get an idea from Joe on that, but doesn't seem to be too much of heavy lifting. And again, I did verify they are a nonprofit, so.
Yep.
My only, so I agree with that. My only concern is I think we need to have just a little bit of proof that they're a nonprofit. I think there needs to be some paperwork submitted.
I looked online today, Bob, verified it through the Secretary of State's office.
Okay, and the only other thing I would say is that in the application, I think the application has to be corrected that the applicant is the nonprofit, and then that the individual who put their name there is the agent. So I just would like to make sure that our paperwork is clean in regards to indicating that this is a nonprofit. I know that throughout the packet, we do see their name, but there was a couple of inconsistencies, I think, in the paperwork.
I also have a question for the building commissioner, because in his letter to the applicant, he stated that he felt that it would require substantial, therefore he didn't think it could be done as a administrative. But to me, for our purposes, it seems as though it's administrative, but the applicant will have to work in great detail with the health department, and I know they have their own fee schedules. So if the building commissioner is still online and can explain his comment regarding the amount of substantive change over.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Fontaine.
Okay, so Kate, and the members of the board, there were a lot of moving pieces with this, and I just felt that with the Board of Health involved with it, the fire department, where animals are going to be there or bunny rabbits, I just felt there was just too many parts moving where the board, I felt that the board had to put some thoughts and thinking in it, making sure that we were doing the right thing. I just felt that it was something that the planning board needed to look at.
Okay, thank you.
So Kate, given that, does that I guess influence your opinion or your perspective on an application fee?
Personally, when I looked at it, it seemed as though for the planning board, it could, I personally, of course, I'm probably missing a lot of the nuances, but I thought it was fairly straightforward from our end. And so I was willing to waive, to just make it administrative. And I believe there's usually not a fee for that, because I do appreciate that the health department will be involved a lot with this.
Okay, thanks. Darren, any thoughts on application fee?
Yeah, I'm happy with the 300.
And Mike, did you have I know that you commented that they are a nonprofit. Did you offer an opinion? I'm sorry, on fee?
Yeah, 300 I was happy with.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bob?
I am fine with the 300, just as long as we put the proof into the packet.
Yep.
The evidence.
Yep. And I'm fine with 300 as well. So, I think, I mean, do we need to put that forward as a motion? We do. All right. Would someone like to put forward a motion that the application fee for this, for PB 2203 be $300?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second on a $300 application fee. All those in favor say aye. Kate?
Nay.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Kate, your nay threw me off for a second there. Okay. All right. Okay. So with our duckies and bunnies now in a row, let's get down to business. Do we have an applicant in front of us to speak to the project?
Hi, yes, my name's Suzanne Trahan. I'm not an attorney, so it's been intimidating watching all the other attorneys go by. And I'm with the House Fabin Network. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and thank you for considering that. I'm happy to email Sierra the 501c3 letter if that works tomorrow. I can take care of that. Uh, and Sierra, you can let me know if you need something else. And we are, we're looking, we've had a small shelter in Billerica, and we're looking to expand to a larger shelter space. And then there's a big need for discount spay or neuter services. So we want to set up a spay or neuter clinic. So we have space that we want to set this up in, and we need to go through all the permitting process to do that. It is for the clinic, it's a change of use. And we are also meeting with the Zoning Board of Appeals. We had a preliminary meeting, and we have a secondary meeting of follow-up next week for the special permit for the kennel, not the kennel, the shelter part. And it's what we're looking to do in part of it is have probably to start off like 20 to 25 cages where bunnies are going to be living, and we're going to be taking care of them and doing adoptions. We do also do, there's a lot of confusion about grooming services. Bunnies do not get bathed or anything like that. We do offer grooming services, but grooming services for bunnies are like trimming nails and brushing. So it's very basic. It's different than, say, grooming a dog or a cat. I don't even know what's involved with cat grooming, so I shouldn't speak about that. But it's very different than grooming dogs. There's no bathing or anything like that. We've operated the shelter before. We've been in existence since 2000. So we're 22 years old in a couple of weeks, February 22nd. We will be 22 years old. We did 480 adoptions last year. There's a big need for rabbit adoptions, and people don't realize that the need is there. We also do education along with the spays or neuter, the rabbit care and rescue and adoption. We do education events because we figure the more people learn, the better off we are. It's an existing structure, so there's no external changes that are going to be made. We are going to make some minor like we want to remove a couple of walls inside, and we're going to add, I think, like 2 new sinks. So there's going to be minor interior changes right now. I mean, that's what the immediate plan is, and we want to set things up. We'd like to get the shelter piece going pretty quickly. Realistically, setting up the clinic is probably a year out by the time we design everything and get a contractor in to build everything and stuff like that. So we're looking hopefully in about a year to open up a clinic, a spay neuter clinic, and have a shelter piece in there now. I'm not sure if there's any other question, any questions for me?
Yeah, we can go around and we will get some questions from the board for you. So thank you very much for the overview.
Thank you.
Joe, any comments from town staff before I go to the board?
Not really much at this time, Mr. Chairman. Again, we had a flurry of comments come in over the weekend and even today. You may have seen a couple on this one who was asking questions about the level of traffic that there was going to be generated by the use. So that just might be a question you may want to raise to the applicant.
Yep, great. Thank you very much. All right, with that, let's go to the board. So Kate, would you like to go first?
Yeah, am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. I have a friend who she loves the really, really, really tiny bunnies. So I'm hoping you'll have some so I can get her to adopt one. I forget what the mini Netherland or something like that.
Netherland dwarf rabbit.
Yeah. So maybe someday you'll get one.
Although a lot of our bunnies are mutts, to be honest.
But I was just curious, there was a discrepancy in some of the narrative. In one part, you say it's for rabbits only, but in another part, you say how you could be grooming or taking care of veterinary or whatever for other small animals like guinea pigs and cats, which I thought was interesting. Why cats? So so can you just clarify that?
Oh, sure. On the shelter piece is going to be rabbits only. Okay, we only have interest in rabbits and stuff like that. As far as the spay or neuter clinic, right? We're not convinced that there's enough of a need for a full-time clinic for rabbits. So we were thinking of doing rabbits and cats because we know with adding cats in there that they'll fill up all the spaces over a week's time, so to speak. So, we could have a full like we could hire a full-time veterinarian to be there Monday to Friday and offer spay and neuter appointments, and there's a need for cats too. And as far as like the other animals, there is like where there's a need for rabbits, there's also a shortage and difficulty getting discount services for guinea pigs and rats and other small animals. So like if somebody came to us and said, like we have friends in a rat rescue, if they wanted to get a couple of rats neutered through us, I wouldn't have a problem doing that either. But that would only be for the clinic part, not the shelter part. And those are day surgeries. They're dropped off in the morning. There's a drop-off window of like 2 hours in the morning, and then they're picked up in the evening and go home. So it, would operate like a lot of other spay and neuter clinics, except no dogs at all. And nothing too exotic, like we're not going to do pigs or any, I mean, it's all animals that'd be like under 20-ish pounds, or I guess you can have like a 22-pound cat, but you know what I'm saying, that range. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you. That was all I had.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kate. Darren?
Thank you. Yeah, so my concerns are around traffic. I know a lot of the neighbors have kind of opined on this as well. I'm just trying to think if there's a way that you guys could work with the neighbors. Like you just mentioned, there's sort of a drop-off window and a pickup window. If there's a way to manage that so that, like, I know that my kids went to the driver's ed school there, so I know there's a lot of traffic that goes on there at certain times of day. So, if it was a matter of coordinating that around sort of when students are getting dropped off and picked up and managing it that way, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, I mean, for dropping off should be pretty simple because that's generally something like 7 to 9 in the morning. So I think it's unlikely that would impact the other businesses, but I can't say for sure. And as far as pickup in the evening, I mean, again, a lot of it is the range of time you give, and we can also put appointments in there so people can do appointments and stuff like that. But it's kind of spread out, like it's 20 cars spread out over a couple of hours.
Right.
So, and the
And I would
pickup, the thing is, they're literally 5 minutes. It's pretty quick, in and out, in and out. So
Right.
I don't anticipate it being too many cars there at once. I mean, we're thinking it'd be, 2 to 4 cars at any given time most, and times there'd be no cars and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's a way to manage that. So, you've got your pickup at a certain window, maybe they're first come, first serve or whatever it is, but that way you kind of manage when those people are coming in the afternoon, knowing there's limited spaces there.
Yeah, I mean, we could set appointment times that they pick up at, it's hard to force people to be exactly on time, but we can turn around and say, these 3 people could pick up at 4 o'clock, these 3 people could pick up at 4:20. We
Right.
could set up times like that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we could set up that, and I think it'd be pretty manageable. Like, I don't anticipate any more than a few people there at any given time. And it's pretty quick. I mean, you just pack up the bunny and put them out, in the carrier, hand the carrier off.
Right. I think it's manageable. I just think it's going to require some coordination.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm good then. Thanks, Dylan.
Yep, thanks, Darren. Mike?
Thanks, Darren. Dylan. Darren, I think to continue on what you were saying now, Ms. Trahan, how many you said about 20 cars per day you've been seeing in Billerica? 20 people in and out a day?
Well, no, because in Billerica, we only have a shelter space. Okay, and we want to expand to add clinic space also.
Okay. So you're anticipating maybe 20 people a day in and out? Or 10 people in the morning, 10 people in the afternoon, or?
It'd be like 20 in the morning dropping off. If you do 20 surgeries,
Okay.
you'd have 20 people dropping off in the morning. I mean, it may be slightly less because some people may be dropping off 2 or 3 or 4 pets at a time.
Yeah.
Because some people have like a pair, so it may be slightly less. And those same 20 people will come pick up in the evening.
So at that facility, and you may not know, but do you know, are you deeded parking spaces or are they allotted
No.
per unit?
No, it's from what I understand, it's just a free for all for it. And there are 66 parking spaces there that I
66?
counted. 66.
5, 6? I'm sorry.
No, 66.
6, and there's 7 units, is that right?
Yes. So about 9.5 parking spaces per unit.
All right, and so, I mean, it seems to me, just looking at the comments from the butters, is that, you know, the parking is a disaster now, and I don't know, it's obviously not your fault you haven't got there yet.
Right.
But I think that, I think it may be a combination, as like what Darren said, you know, the auto school and lots of people coming at the same time, and, you know.
The auto school has 9 cars there that I saw, so at least 9 cars. And then by the time you figure instructors coming with their cars and stuff like that, there's a livery service, I counted 12 cars there, so there's at least 12 cars for them. Lawn doctor has a bunch of cars. But my also thought is the previous people, Next Tech, they had 12 to 18 employees, and we're estimating using 5 to 10 parking spaces, so we should be a decrease from the previous tenants, owners.
Right. No, and I think it's going to be imperative that you do, you know, stagger the drop-offs and pickups,
Yes,
even for your own clients, right? That they're not going to want to be waiting in line to get a parking space to drop off or pick up their animals.
oh yeah, and even for us for staff, I mean, we have staff, you know, if you have 2 or 3 staff handling it, you don't want everybody showing up at the same time. You want to stagger it so your staff can handle it.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. You know, again, I think that the Board of Health is going to be a lot more involved than we are in this, and you know, I wish you luck.
Thank you. I've been chatting with Ray Dick already.
Yep.
And I've been chatting with Kirsten, the ACO.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Bob?
Yes, so let me just keep on the discussion on the parking. I guess my question would be maybe to the town engineering staff to ask, what is the calculation impact to parking based upon the change of use? That's typically something we talk about when there's a change of use. I mean, I appreciate what Suzanne said, and that's useful information, but we got to make sure that we do stay within the bounds of the regulations and make sure the change of use doesn't provide for an increased, or doesn't require a significant increase in the number of parking spaces. And with respect to that, I would recommend that House Rabbit Network try to negotiate with the landlord to get 1 to 2 spaces dedicated for customers immediately in front of those premises, just to support the rapid delivery and drop off. I mean, if the customers are faced with trying to find a space throughout that parking lot, that could create a free-for-all that's not under the control of HRN. So just a suggestion there.
I thought of that, and yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. With respect to the term other exotics, I guess I'd like a little more specificity on that. I know we've had a discussion here, but I think we need to make sure that the language in our decision is very specific here. Cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, very specific, but other exotics is wide open. I mean, does a tiger cub fall under other exotic? It's a cat.
Oh, no, no.
So I just gonna make sure we cover all bases here of what an
Yeah.
exotic is.
I mean, I'm fine with limiting it to things like guinea pigs, ferrets, rats, chinchillas.
Okay.
I
If we could do that, I'd be much more comfortable with this, because
So no snakes or frogs, that kind of thing?
no, no, no.
I know you
Small
said no
mammals.
pig.
Small
Okay.
mammals.
Small mammals, gotcha. And the last thing, for spaying and neutering, what would be the on-site requirements for things such as medical gases? Are those going to be required?
Yes, there are medical gases. We work with veterinarians with DE licenses and stuff, and there will be a veterinarian that's a licensed veterinarian that's, I hope I got my terminology right, that is responsible for that, and like drugs and stuff are stored in a wall-mounted cabinet that's double locked, and controlled substances are all logged and everything. And we're working on our protocol book right now. So we will have a medical protocol book, a drug handling book, and like we're in the process of working on all the protocols for how we handle things. And I'm working with people that are vet techs and veterinarians to set that up.
All right, and you beat me to the punch, because my next question was controlled substances and whether or not that requires any kind of upgrade to the alarm and security system.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of it in any other hospitals. I was told that it's usually a wall-mounted unit, and it's, and the police department asked about it, and that was the answer I gave, that it's wall-mounted and locked and under the control of a DEA licensed veterinarian. And they didn't respond back to that, so I assume they're okay with it. And that was
Okay.
like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so it was a little while ago.
So, yeah, I'd be looking, I guess, for town staff with Board of Health to just provide us the guidance on that aspect. But otherwise, I'm fine with this.
Thanks, Bob. I agree with, the board's comments. I think the main crux of the issue here is parking. And I agree with Bob's ask, so that we can understand from town engineering, like how many spots are there and how does that, fit with the bylaw as far as this change in use. And also I agree with the recommendation from Bob to get a couple of spots dedicated for HRN and right in front of the location. So, okay. What are the next steps? I guess we have to continue this item. Do you have a time, Suzanne, in front of the Board of Health on the calendar?
I didn't know I had to meet them in person. I've been communicating with Ray Dick. I'm not sure what the process is. I didn't realize I had to meet in person.
No, I don't know that you do.
I think it was the ZBA, Dylan, you're probably referring to.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, I guess I'll retract my question. It's really the health department, not the Board of Health, that I guess we need this guidance from. That was my bad.
Okay, sorry, Bob. So
Did you want to take any comments from the public, Mr. Chair?
we will. I'm just trying to figure out what the next, when are we?
Let me,
All right.
Dylan, I apologize. What are we continuing for, just to see if dedicated spaces, or?
I guess we'll go to the public and see if there's public comment on this, because there may be some folks here, some of the abutters. So let's do that, I guess, first. So Sierra, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make comments? And again, this is PB 2203 for 2 Park Drive, Unit 1.
I do not see any hands raised. Oh, hold on.
Oh, Henry.
Oh, it looks like Henry is, yeah.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just to the applicant, and I'm not sure if they're aware of it or not. At the last ZBA meeting, and I know I shouldn't be mixing this, but I just want to be sure that the applicant's clear so that there's no misunderstandings, and we can keep on pointing her in the right direction. There was talk about hay in the building and what they were going to do with that. Are they planning on putting that hay outside of the building so that it doesn't become a problem with the fire department? Because there was an email to me today with concern of the hay being inside of the building and whether the fire marshal's office was going to make comment on it. So again, if this is the proper, not the proper board, I just want to kind of just bring this information up to the applicant only.
Yes, I had, well, we did get permission from the condo board that we can put a shed outside to store hay in. Okay, and they're trying to work out the semantics of setting it up and stuff like that, but we did get permission from that. And then I spoke to Lieutenant Pearson. in the fire department, Parsons, sorry.
Yes.
And just checking with him about what constitutes how much, like, they're talking about hay storage, but then there's, like, people get bales of hay in their home all the time. So how much is acceptable to be considered general use, I guess, before it's considered storage? And what would that number be? Because like if we limit ourselves to like 2 or 3 bales, do we really need a shed? And like I checked with places like the MSPCA in Boston and Lowell Humane, and they keep their hay in their buildings, although it's limited to like just a few bales at a time. And I went to my local O'Connor's, Ace Hardware now, sorry, in Billerica, and like they have right stacked in their store 12 bales of hay next to 12 bales of straw. And that's not really storage either. So like, I'm not sure where the number becomes more from like use into storage. So I was having discussions with them about that, but we do have permission to have a shed to make sure that the hay is, whatever that number is, if we go over it, or we can just store hay off-site too.
Okay.
Just how much can we have in the building?
All right, so my comment to you only was just so that I can keep you going in the right direction. That the email to me was just there was concern about it, and they were going to speak to the fire marshal's office. So I would stay in contact with Dawn Parsons, just to be sure that that everything's going well for you. But I do wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Sierra, it appears there might be somebody else with their hand up, Michelle Oates.
Yes, I believe she's already allowed to. Oh, okay, there we go.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
Hi, okay. I was the real estate agent that helped with the sale of the property. So I've been in communication with the town and with Suzanne throughout the process. I just wanted to comment that Ray Dick had sent a list on Thursday of the 6 requirements that the health department has. And this was in regard to the special permit, but it seems to encompass both the clinic and the permit. One was to install a water meter. One was to install an industrial holding tank. Number 3 was to limit them to 50 cages for now until they can look at water use. And then the last 3 were just waste being removed and taken off site, which is already the plan, no bathing of animals, and medical waste to be disposed properly. So I think the health department has already given their response.
Yep. Great. All right. Anybody else from the audience care to comment on this? Do you see anybody, Sarah, with a hand raised?
I do not see any hands raised.
Great. So what's the pleasure of the board? Would somebody like to put forward a motion to approve the change in use from business to veterinary hospital, or do we want to continue to the next meeting?
Oh, I think I'd put a motion to approve, but I think Bob had some things he wanted to see. So can we vote to approve conditioned upon them providing that information? Is that appropriate? I'd hate for these folks to have to
I'm
come
fine with
back,
that.
Yep.
So I will.
Kate, you're muted. Hold on. Kate's saying something, but she's muted. Kate, you're muted.
I know. I always have a problem with closing the public hearing before you get all the information that you want to make a good decision. Because what happens if I know they want to go forward, but if you all feel that the confirmation of the parking is important, then what happens if engineering comes back and says, no, not enough spaces?
Paul, has town engineering even had a chance to look at this application at this point?
No, and I've been patiently quiet. That's really going to be a planning question. What the planner has access to the same information. Have you looked at this, Joe? We have not, but it's just a chart. It's going to tell you how many parking spaces per how many square feet.
But it has to be in combination with all of the other businesses in there to make, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
And I'm looking for the delta between the existing and the current, this proposed use as well.
So my plan is that we'll get together with Joe and talk about that very formula and figure out, what is required.
All right, then does it make sense to ask staff to put together a decision and we can vote on it at the next meeting?
That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, I apologize, Suzanne, but it's kind of information we need to have.
I get it. Is it helpful to know that the previous business had 12 to 18 employees that were in the building, like so parking? If they can use that metric compared to,
Yes, that's all very helpful, but it's the cumulative spaces available for the square footage of the property and the uses.
Right.
you know, we have not looked at this. Have you looked at it, Joe? Have you taken a peek at this already?
Not gotten into the details of the parking requirement.
Right.
No.
Yeah, so we've just got to figure out what your other uses are and what they're doing versus
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah, like on the principal use under agriculture, boarding, renting and sale of animals on parcels of less than 5 acres. It's as may be determined by the planning board during site plan review. Veterinary hospital or clinic, 1 space per 200 square feet. So
there's the formula. We'll math that out for you when we review this and give you an answer.
Okay. Does that, wait, so we're talking veterinary clinic 100 per 200 square feet, but.
one space per 200 square feet, yep.
Okay, so, but part of that is the shelter part.
Right, and I think that's what Paul means when we'll map it out, right? So we'll try to figure out, you know, what the formula would be for the parking spaces. At the end of the day, this may help your other tenants if there's issues with no parking, you know, with what they're doing, so.
I mean, it's quite likely, Suzanne, that this will drop the required number of spaces, and that's what I'm asking. How does it compare to the previous use?
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we continue PB 2203 to Park Drive, Unit 1, to our next meeting is at March 7th?
Yes.
March 7th at 7 o'clock at the town hall unless otherwise notified.
Right.
Well, do we want to ask staff to draft a decision as well?
I think that's wise.
Yes, please.
Sure, we can do that.
Right.
Yeah, you could also just check with the health department.
All right, then I'll second.
All right, we have a motion.
And with
Sorry,
luck, they'll be through with the ZBA by then. I hope.
Yeah.
Great, motion and a second, with some direction to town staff to draft a decision. All those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a month.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
You've done
you.
a lot of work, so good for you.
Thank you.
All right, that
Thanks,
was our
Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you, Paul. That was our last public hearing item. We are on to general business. We've already tackled item A under general business, which was 60 Littleton Road, excuse me. The next general business topic is item B, which is PB 2204, public discussion of an application for a preliminary subdivision plan at 8 Flag Road. So, Joe, do you have anything from town staff before we go to the applicant?
Nothing in particular, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Do we have an applicant with us?
Yes, I finally got unmuted. Hello, good evening. My name is Jeffrey Brim, representing Jonathan and Laurie Wilder. Sienna, you're going to bring up some of the plans on this? And while she does, I'm going to
Yes,
refer.
sorry, I was trying to allow Ms. Wilder to be able to speak as well. So just bear with me a moment. I will work on getting the screen shared.
Sure. While you do that, let me give you some background. Jonathan and Laurie Wilder are owners of the 8 Flag Road. It's a 6.74 acre lot. They'd like to divide it into 2 lots. We would originally going to do this as an A&R plan. It's certainly set up to be an A&R plan, but unfortunately, I'll just see in a minute, the adjacent neighbor at number 6 Flag Road is already a hammerhead lot. You know, so although the Wilders have 200 feet of frontage, in order to do this, they would need to get another 50 feet of frontage and not have 3 hammerhead lots in a row.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Can you hold on for just 1 second? I'm realizing something. So this is in general business, Joe, but I'm seeing a public hearing notice. Do we need to open this as a public hearing and waive the reading of this public hearing notice?
So under the subdivision rules and regulations, it's generally held as a public meeting item. I know perhaps in the past, there may have been a way to have it as a public hearing. You're, as the chair, you're more than welcome to allow public input, as it does require notice to abutters, but it doesn't require under the rules and regs and the subdivision rules and regulations, or in Mass General Law, that it needs to be a public hearing.
Okay.
Again, you have the discretion to allow
No.
public comment on it.
That's fine.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, no, if it doesn't have to be a hearing, I'm fine with that. I'm sorry. I just saw a public meeting notice. I didn't know if we needed to waive the reading of this or not.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. I apologize, Mr. Brem. Continue.
No, actually, that's a good point. And let's talk about that because it kind of relays the foundation of what we're doing here. So a preliminary plan under state statute does not require a public meeting, nor does it require a notice to the abutters. Westford has changed that and has allowed notice to the abutters, and I personally think that's a good idea because the whole point of a preliminary plan is to get some of the big issues out on the table and get direction from the board. As you know, it's a non-binding action when you make a direction, but it's hard to tell somebody one thing and then change your mind later on. And that can happen if you get some strong and significant abutter input. So it's great to have the abutters notified and that they could have input. And in this case, they have presented some input, which I'll get to in a little bit. So it is a public meeting and it is open to the public as well as notice to the abutters. So continuing on, so they have a 6.74 acre parcel. They simply just want to divide that into two. They certainly could meet all the requirements for a hammerhead lot, for area, for setbacks to buildings, for R factor. However, because Six Flag Road already is a hammerhead lot, that precludes this lot from being divided into two other hammerhead lots. So that technique in your regulations and in the state law is not allowed. State law does not have that hammerhead. The town of Westford does. So we're proposing a standard subdivision, but essentially it's kind of like an A&R plan. So you kind of have to look at it the same way. So we would have to have a right-of-way and so forth. So the plan that you see in front of you right now is what I'm calling Plan A. This is what we'd like to do. And that plan requires is proposed with a series of waivers. So before I jump over to Plan B is just simply a plan that meets or could meet all your regulations. So Plan A, it divides this lot into two lots, a 2.75 acre hammerhead lot on this new proposed roadway, this cul-de-sac. And then lot 2 is a conventional lot with the 200 feet of frontage at the setback line. You could see that it's dotted line 250 feet back from the setback. And then basically a driveway off the driveway to the lot way in the rear. And you did get some comments from people in Alcorn, and I'll talk about that later. So the concept of this plan is really, it's a paper street. It would be, there would be no improvements. There is an SMF standing for Stormwater Management Facility in the upper right, but that shouldn't have been there. That's a drafting error. But essentially what we're proposing here is to leave the driveway up to 8 Flag Road the way it is. And then you'll notice that it's kind of flat in the area where I'm trying to do a turnoff. And then at the base of that hill, there's already a cart road that Mr. Wilder has built out over the years that brings you. So we'll just follow that cart road along the base of the hill to a house in the back. Now, since we started this project, we have, sorry, I lost track of myself here. We have done some soil testing, and the soil testing was witnessed by the Board of Health way back in the back of the lot, and that was all passed. We did that before the snow and the frost and the ice and everything else that we're having. We did that early December. So yeah, it is a doable lot. We wanted to make sure that that was possible first. Mr. Wilder, I don't want to get too far into it, but he's been a resident of the community since Mr. and Mrs. Wilder since 1985. Due to a serious illness, they need to move out of the community into a house that's more conducive to them. So they're basically in 2 houses right now, up in Maine and one down here. So the idea, we've done this kind of concept before. My office has, as well as other offices have, and I reminded you in my letter of January 7th. We did this sort of same thing on Meridian Way recently, where we took a large parcel of land, put in a roadway, waived a lot of construction. That one crossed a wetland, and it was a lot longer roadway, so that had other issues. But we did that at Meridian Way off of right around the corner here. We did this on Pacific Lane, which was just for one lot. We did it years and years ago. I think maybe Darren was on the board then. Lambert Way off of Lowell Road, we did the same sort of thing. We proposed a paper street essentially and waived construction. We know that police and fire will have some input on that and how exactly the driveway will be configured. But bottom line is that this isn't necessarily something new. What's new, I guess, is that we're proposing essentially nothing on the roadway, the quote right of way. If this was an A&R lot, you have a common driveway for that first few hundred feet, and that would be the most that we would come up before this board. We could also build a driveway adjacent to it, and we wouldn't have come before the board other than an A&R plan. So interestingly, how do we do this as a definitive subdivision? We're proposing to waive a whole bunch of things. So if you saw that in my letter, Article 5, basically the design standards for a roadway, we're asking to waive and just use what's there already. So we'd waive pavement width, dead-end streets, underground utilities, street lights, curbing, sidewalks, and street trees, all those things you would do for building a roadway. Essentially what we want to do is create the frontage with the bulb and then basically essentially build an A&R lot, but it's not an A&R lot. So if you would please, Sienna, can you bring Plan B up? So before Joe came along, Jeff Morissette and I talked, and Jeff said, well, we ought to make sure that this is doable, because the big waiver we need on Plan A is, believe it or not, and this goes back 25 years, you have a regulation that requires roadways to be no less than 400 feet. I know it seems odd, and it's the only one that I know of any town doesn't have that. But because you have that waiver requirement, Jeff wanted me to put together a plan that would be doable without any waivers at all. So that's what this Plan B is. So the road is 400 feet. There's grading proposed. We get frontage. Lot 1 is a conventional lot, and the frontage there is shown at the setback. Lot 2 is a conventional lot, and the frontage there is well in excess of 200 feet. So this basically meets all the rules. Could he build this? Certainly. Why doesn't he want to build it? Because of many reasons, but the biggest one obviously is, why build a giant road like this for no reason? Secondly, obviously, is the cost. Third is there's some serious slopes that we're dealing with. So we'd be grading up the hill, runoff on a flag road over and over and over. So this is definitely not a preferred plan, but it is an available plan to Mr. and Mrs. Wilder. So that's the only reason why this was submitted. This could be done. But back to Sierra, if you could go back to Plan A. So the purpose of a preliminary plan, as we started off with, is to get comments, see if this is something that the board would support, and if so, what kind of conditions, what kind of actions do you need from us? One of the comments that I spoke to Jeff and Joe about recently was, if the board were in favor of something like this, while we're in the design stage, we would come back maybe on the March 7th meeting and actually prepare then the requirements that you need for issuing the waivers. Right now, we'd like to get some input, but hopefully enough so that we can formally request the waivers with all the backup you need for waivers. You know, the backup about how much it costs and what are the benefits to the town. So we could do that on each waiver, outline it in detail before the next meeting, while we're doing the design work and survey work and all the other things. So we have not done any survey work yet. All we've done is the soil testing to prove that there is a lot here. And we really do want to have your input. We really want to basically make this as painless as possible for everybody, including the neighbors. I know that there's comments from the neighbors, and I'm willing to talk about that. But I think it'd be better if we get the board comment first, and then we can go to the abutters comments. Does that make sense, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for the overview, Mr. Brem. We appreciate it. Joe, did you have anything before I go to the board? No?
No, Mr. Chair. No.
Great, thanks. Okay, then we'll go straight to the board for comments. Bob, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I guess I have the same concern for both alternatives A and B, and that is the location of the proposed driveway here back to lot 2. It would appear that the edge of pavement is coming within less than 7 feet of the property boundaries for numbers 4, 6, and 8 Alcorn Crossing. Is that correct, Jeff?
Well, it's a good point. Bob, I don't know if it's 7 or 8 feet because we haven't surveyed this yet. I've walked it, and the wall there is pretty prominent. So when we do the final survey, if you said you needed to be, 10 feet away, I know that can be done. If there's 1 or 2 big trees and there's a drop off, I almost could drive it right now, but there was a rock in the way. The backhoe had no problem going back there. I don't believe we were that close to the wall. So if you 10 or 15 feet was a number that you wanted to make, we could probably make that, believe it or not. What's shown here is done without survey.
Well, I guess I don't want to make that. I would like to see it outside the 15-foot setback.
Sure.
I'm simply going on the diagram you provided us, and it indicated it was closer to the property boundary than it was to the setback line.
I see that, and I see that, and note that we just don't have enough information on this plan yet, but I'm confident that we can make that work, even with a little bit of regrading. So
yeah, I mean, I would like to see it well back from that 15 feet, to be honest. I don't want to see, skirting that line. I've got a concern because I can see the topography is steep in that area. It's downhill towards those other parcels, and I would be concerned about additional runoff making its way down that long driveway, because I'm assuming that driveway is not going to have a pavement edge. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I would think that somebody would want to just gravel that. Yeah.
If I could clarify, Mr. Chair, the existing driveway is gravel now. There's no pavement out there.
Correct.
I'm aware.
Thank you, Paul.
And we are getting a significant amount of erosion runoff every time it rains. There's already gravel coming down off of that driveway. Is the intention to pave it? I heard the word pavement.
Good question, Paul. I don't think the intention is to not make much change, but thereupon you're here, we're in front of you. Certainly up to where it's common, that's probably where the problems are occurring. If that needed to be paved, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. It would save probably that problem that you'd had erosion onto Flag Road, and it would be a good point to break the two up, and the financing for that pavement would come from the sale of the lot. So I think that all makes sense.
I would anticipate that comment from the engineering department, which we usually don't make any big effort on the preliminaries, but there is we get some we've had events out there. It's Willy Wonka's chocolate factory coming down onto Flag Road. So that's gonna have to be addressed at some point.
If I may, Mr. Chair, that's exactly what this process is about. So I'm thankful for Paul's comments.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Brem. Thank you, Paul. Bob, any other comments?
No, so I think that categorizes it. I'm just really concerned about the close proximity of the driveway and the parking pad for lot 2 that would be immediately adjacent to 8 Alcorn Crossing, and just concerned about, increasing runoff towards that boundary. So that's it for this. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Bob. Darren?
Thanks. So yeah, living in that neighborhood, I know that, yeah, after a storm, you can definitely see some dirt and rocks in Flag Road coming down this driveway. But my preference, I guess, would be this layout versus the other one. And the only thing I would ask Mr. Brem is, on this proposed driveway, you say in this case, you'd be asking for a lot of waivers, one of which would be curbs. I'm wondering if a curb on the top end or probably the Alcorn side of this driveway might help in terms of drainage here. So as everything's sloping down towards Alcorn on that hill, maybe a curb on this driveway, proposed driveway, might be able to control that a little better.
Yeah, let's get back to that. I was saving that to one of the comments that we've received from the abutters, but yeah, there will be, the good news is part of the definitive subdivision plan, as well as your stormwater regulations, you're going to get a stormwater design for this, a formalized control design.
Okay, yeah, that was my comment on kind of first glance here.
Yep.
Great. Any other comments, Darren?
Nope, all set, thanks.
Great, thanks. Kate?
I'm unmuted, great. I don't think I understood Mr. Brem mentioned there's a cart path. Is that the existing driveway, or is the proposed driveway an existing cart path?
Correct, the second one. The proposed driveway is, like I said, we don't have survey yet, but it generally is intended to conform to what is already there as not really a cart path. I think Mr. Wilder had some equipment, but you could almost drive a vehicle there. You definitely could drive a backhoe without cutting down any trees. So it's wide enough for a backhoe, which means it's wide enough for a driveway. And like I said, I'll look into it and make sure that we maintain a 15-foot setback to the property, as Bob said. So
the question is, how long would that be from where it would truncate off the existing driveway?
it's a little over 600 feet from the beginning. So
Maybe
I think
400 feet.
it's about, let's see, I can almost read some numbers here. If I look at my own plans, I can. Just give me a second, Kate. 350, yeah, it's about 450 feet back from where it truncate, where the two join up.
Okay, because you're going to have a lot of pushback from fire because it is such a long proposed driveway that they're going to probably require you to make it 16 or 18 feet wide and possibly with reinforced shoulders.
Yeah.
Because they'll be concerned about the fire trucks that they can't easily back out of this. And they're going to also have concerns about having sufficient turnaround at the end by the house. Let's see, utilities. I know we like it for new developments to have utilities underground. I can appreciate for the existing dwelling, you want to keep whatever's there, but I would, especially because there are the two houses, 4 and 8 and 6 Alcorn that have a view of this. I would not be, I would encourage underground utilities to lot 2. I would not be in favor of telephone poles and such. Do you know if there's any ledge where you're proposing to put the house on lot 2 or else on the hill?
Sure, no, there's no ledge where we dug a hole right where the house is, and the septic system is kind of behind lot 1 there. Because that's where the better water table was. We hit water, I think, at 3 or 4 feet, and we just wanted to go around the corner and get a better water table. So we did not hit any ledge. It just was probably a little bit of high water.
Okay. And in terms of Plan A versus Plan B, they're, both roadways or right-of-ways are, as you mentioned, on paper. And so either plan that you go with, you're going to have access easements for one lot using something that's going to the other lot. So there's, in terms of that, there's really no difference. The only nice thing about Plan A is that it's officially, Lot A officially has a lot more land, so you don't get into issues with a cantankerous a butter down the road that says, well, you're doing stuff on the right of way. It's not your property. I don't want you to do that. There will probably also be issues with that narrow section in the existing driveway. I'm sure you'll have to widen that so that at least until where the two split, they'll probably want you to make it to private road standards. It's not like Pacific Lane where you haven't had a lot of restrictions in trying to widen the road. What I see here doesn't seem to have any restrictions to making a wider entrance roadway. I am concerned about that hill. I mean, it's wonderful for the existing dwelling. It's a beautiful view right on top. We are getting to the point in Westford where there are a lot of parcels that aren't ideal. And this is not an ideal one for splitting off a second house. So my take is, to me, because of that hill and the very slim space between the hill and the edge of the property, this is one where, yes, you can do it. But should you do it? And my answer would be no. So I just because of that narrow space. Otherwise you'll be cutting a lot into that hill and having walls and such. So those are my comments for now.
Thanks, Kate. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. So I know this property well. I grew up on Flag Road. In my mind, I'm looking at what, almost 7 acres of land, and they're looking for 2 units. I think that's great. Mr. Brem, you said that it's a cart path. I think the driveway is pretty much a cart path as well. So I think in my mind, the applicant working with our town engineer to clean up the driveway from making a mess on Flag Road. I think that'd be great. I think that'd be a great improvement. I understand the concern with being close to the lot line with the proposed driveway. And, I would like to see it pulled back a little bit, but I also know that there's a big hill there. I don't know that I'd be so concerned, 600 feet. I don't know what that would cost to put utilities underground as opposed to telephone poles. I'd be interested in see what that difference is. I think it's going to be significant. So I don't know. I think depending on what that number would be how I would sway on whether I'd grant that waiver. But I think it's a good project. There's a lot of land there, and I think you can tuck that house back on the flat land towards the back. I have full confidence in our engineering department to help with the runoff and feel that can be taken care of very easily by them. So those are my thoughts on it. I think it's going to be a good project. And again, 2 units on a lot of land, in my mind, is a good deal.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I agree. It's plenty of land to hold 2 houses. I think it would be easier if the applicant wasn't trying to retain the existing dwelling, because I think the placement of that house makes it just tricky to access the other sort of flatter. At least I don't know the property as well as maybe Mike does and stuff, but just from looking at the topology map, I mean, the other good part of the property is just tucked in the back, and where the existing house is makes it very challenging to get back there. I share Bob's concerns with the proximity of that proposed driveway to the edge of the parcel, and would like to, again, not knowing the grade specifically, but seeing it's definitely steep there, to whatever extent we can pull it into the hill. I think that would be a good call. And I also agree with, I think Darren made the point that I think having, even if it's a Cape Cod berm or some other kind of edge on that, might help you actually manage water flow to keep runoff from continuing down that hill and back towards the houses on Alcorn. So those are my initial thoughts. Let's see. So at this point, Sierra, is there anybody in the audience who would like to raise their hand and make a comment on 8 Flag Road?
Yes, I do see a couple of hands raised. So I'm going to go with the first one that I saw, and then after this person, the next one can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hello. It's nice to see the full process of how the town is run. Just to give a little bit about myself, I'm a neighbor from 10 Elkhorn Crossing. I met Mr. and Mrs. Wilder. They were very courteous. They gave us a heads up on this process, and I appreciate that. And I wish him all the best with whatever he needs to do. I trust that the town would do right by everybody involved. And you guys know more than we do in terms of the slopes and the runoffs and how it affects everything. Right now, that parcel is wooded and it's one of the most beautiful areas. And obviously, as much as I would like to not have a house behind there, we have to do what's right for him as well. My primary concern is how far is this house going to be from the plot lines? It's hard for me to kind of figure out how big a dwelling is going to be permitted and how far is that going to be from both sides of the corner.
Mr. Brem, do you have any anticipated size of the house that the applicant is looking to build?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the neighbor at 10 Elkhorn, and in your comments about Mr. and Mrs. Wilder, that's good because we talked about meeting the neighbors and so forth. One of the other comments you're going to receive is to possibly reorient the house a little bit and rotate it, I guess, left to right, so that it kind of lines up with Elkhorn, and put the front of the house there. So as you're driving up Elkhorn and you see through the trees that we're hoping to save, that the house lines up and looks more like an Elkhorn house than it does a Flag Road house. That's a pretty good comment. And I'm going to take that comment to heart and possibly do that. That rotates a little bit. You see right now a 25-foot setback, that line that's dashed on the plan. I'm sure that we can comply with a 50-foot setback pretty easily. As far as the size of the house goes, I don't know that, but it generally would, we've shown a pretty big house. Look at Mr. Wilder's house, which is a decent sized house compared to this as far as the scale goes. So this is, a 4,000 square foot, 4-bedroom house probably is what we've shown. And it's still, 75 feet back from the property line right now. And we could attest to be 50 feet. We'll get to more of that detail when we have the real topo in this area, and we could lay the house out perfectly. But I think we're receiving those comments both from your neighbor, Mr. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so I don't want to try. But we're receiving your comments, and I know you've already talked to Mr. and Mrs. Wilder about that location of the house. I will tell you, in my opinion, it will be the most impacted about her because just the way your house is oriented versus this property. So, and the Wilders are very concerned about that as well. So they've told me that. So we will work and do the best we can to create the best scenario for you. That's just words to me right now from me, but I know that's part of what they want to do. And I know the board's going to push us in that direction as well.
And where would the septic be in this plan? Is it going to be in that flat part?
I don't have a cursor, but I'll try to, if I don't even know if north is up, because I don't think it is. I think north is to the right. See that behind lot 1, that area that kind of juts in, lot 2, yeah, you go right there. There's a dark line, contour line, and the septic that we tested is right, a little bit further, right there. Right there is where the septic is going.
Isn't that pretty far away from the house?
Yeah, it would have to be pumped around the corner. Yep. Okay. But it's doable. That's what we do it.
And so that would require that to be not wooded, correct? Like you would obviously clear all the trees there.
would clear the trees for that area, but I think the alternative is right in front of the house, which I think we've been talking a
Which
while.
would be
There's
more
about-
problematic for me, yes.
Exactly. So we're trying to appease as many different constraints as possible, so.
Yeah, I mean, I met the couple, they're very nice people, and obviously want to do right by everybody involved. And I hope the town, with their experience, would do what's best for everyone involved. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Before you go away or sign off, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
Could I ask that particular neighbor, because he's the one that I believe, again, is most impacted, if he could send an email to Joe at the town, the planner?
Sorry, okay.
I'd like you to
last
send
name-
your email to Joe, who's a town planner, or Sierra, and then they could send it to me, and I'd like to keep you informed as we go along, if that's
That would be
okay with the
great, yeah.
board and yourself.
Sure, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And Sierra, is there anybody else with their hand up who'd like to comment on 8 Flag Road?
We do have 2 more hands up.
Great.
So I'm going to allow to speak the first hand that I had seen raised, and then we'll go on to the next person. So, okay.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, my name is Sung Son, and I'm a resident of 8 Elkhorn Crossing. So actually, I submitted a kind of written document that shows the kind of the view of the property from our home. Is it possible to show the letter?
Sierra, can you pull that up?
Sure, just bear with me a moment. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah. I met the neighbor, and then we already knew the plan, and I can easily see that lot is really big, and I would do the subdivision as well. But when I looked at plan, as the document will show, but it looks like too much engineering work, given the very small amount of land can be used for dwelling. And then in order to access that the flat space, that should be kind of challenging the driveway construction as well. So that's why, yeah. Can you go down? And then if you see the attachments.
All right, sorry, the scrolling's a little bit slow.
That's fine, yeah. So I think this actually see, can you actually enlarge the figure, make it zoom in?
Is that
So
better?
as you can see, this color just shows the elevation, right? As you can see, most of the property of 8 Elkhorn is mostly hill. And then they creating the driveway just side of the hill, and then put the dwelling on trying to put the dwelling on just close to 10 Elkhorn, and all these this driveway need to access the level of all the Elkhorn 2, 4, 6, 8. So I think this is a technically too difficult. Even if you can get a waiver for the beginning of this pre-application, but down the road, the application already mentioned it requires lots of the subsequent waivers to make this proper the development realistic. So that's something I want to point out. And then can you scroll down a little bit? And there should be a, this just shows the, this is the 8 Elkhorn. Can you scroll down?
Okay.
And then the builder mentioned, right, there is a prior approval for similar cases, but as you can see, this one is 19 flag, and as you can see, this is mostly flat. So unlike the proposed plan, there's this, again, this is too much the engineering work as well. So can you go to the last attachment, which shows the next
This or
one?
the,
Yeah, next one.
okay.
Sorry about, yeah, this one, yeah.
Okay.
Is it possible to scroll? But yeah, this is actually their proposed driveway. And this driveway is actually up the neighboring, all neighbors, all the houses in Alcon. And then there is a 4 Alcon, 6 Alcon, and our home is here. And they propose driveway this way. I don't think this can driveway can allow like a fire truck. And then there is also hill on toward the A flag. I think that slope is too much. So, and then as the board members, I had a couple of board members had a concern that it should be kind of erosion from the hillside. And then I think this construction will make this situation more worse. Yeah, that's my comments for now.
Great. Thank you for the feedback. Mr. Brem, any comments on that?
Yes, my first comment is I haven't received the letter. I received 2 letters already, but not this one. So Sienna, can you send that off to me? Or Joe? Hello?
Yes, I
Sarah?
think we got some comments even up through this afternoon, perhaps, all the way up until 3:30 we were receiving some comments. So yeah, we can make sure that we get all that over to you.
Sure, and that's what
Sounds
this
like you-
process is. Go ahead.
Sounds like you're playing catch up, but I'll need a copy of that stuff too, Sierra.
Okay.
I'll stare.
All right.
Sierra, I keep calling you Sienna, sorry.
That's okay, I've been called worse.
Sienna's a beautiful place. Yeah, I'll stop there. As far as your comments, Mr. Chair, on this, give me time to address it. Obviously, we're going to address all those things as part of our stormwater permit and the whole definitive subdivision permit, as far as erosion and drainage and those things. That visual with the different colors was nice to see, but it also was good to kind of see how it blended this house. That kind of blends in the neighborhood, even though its access is coming off of Flag Road. And I think underlying all this is the fact that the Wilders, who have lived here a long time, longer than most of us, they just want to have their exit now, and they're not trying to turn it into a big 5 or 6 lot subdivision. Not trying to make the whole hill a big problem for anybody. They're trying to work with the hill and just get 1 lot, and I think some of the board members brought that up. And it shows that they also went around to the neighborhood to show their plans to the various abutters, so that they could get comments early on. They've expressed those comments already to me, and I think that's what this process is all about. That's my comment on that.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Brem. Okay. Sierra, you said that there was somebody else who wanted to comment.
Yes, we have 2 more hands raised. Go to the first person now.
Hi, this is Rob Feuersanger. Live at 3 Alcorn Crossing, which is across the street. I had put in the comments about, and I think some of the board members have mentioned too, that they're kind of tucking this house in the corner. The corner is very close to Alcorn, as you can see in the plan. And when all the trees are down, it's going to be very exposed. So it's definitely going to change the character of the street. The proposal with the house back being towards the street would definitely change it. I appreciate that you acknowledge the comment and maybe understand that issue. Maybe Alcorn would rather look at the front of the house than the back of the house. But the bigger issue is that it's tucked back in there, and basically all the trees are going to have to come down. So there's not going to be a lot of space between the road and this lot, and it's going to be open. And that's not the character of Alcorn right now. If you drive down it now, there's wooden lots in between every house. And what this is going to look like is a big bare spot in between number 10 and number 8.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be looking right at that bare spot.
I agree.
You're looking at a
That's
big-
my primary concern too. It's gonna be a house stuck in between two houses with a whole bunch of wooded area that's cleared now.
I want to bring that issue, that issue from other perspective. Because of that we are going to keep the trees around the boundary, and that will make the planned driveway. It's going to be more difficult to maintain during the winter time, because it's going to be all shaded area, and then the driveway itself is also hill. I don't know how that can be as used as a regular residential driveway. So that's one of my concern too.
Yeah, as Mr. Prim mentioned that, Mr. and Mrs. Wilder, they're going to move on, and whoever comes in as the builder, I presume we would have a review process of whatever the final plans are. Because right now they're just proposing to split the property, correct? Like not exactly seek approvals for a building permit and trying to put the dwelling right now. So it's going to be a new owner that's going to call the shots, and what's the assurance of plan changes and whatnot after this approval?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I need to jump in for a moment here. So I mistakenly did not mute the people who had spoken beforehand. And with a virtual meeting, it's much like going up to a microphone where we try to just have one person speak at a time. So I do apologize for that. I just don't want too many questions to be floating around and feel like, not everyone gets their questions answered. So I'm going to just go ahead and mute the 2 people who have already spoken. And then we'll just allow the, and certainly feel free to raise your hand again if you would like to speak again. We can always unmute you again, and you certainly, have opportunity to comment again. So sorry, just wanted to throw that out there.
So thank you for clarifying that, Sierra. I think that was a good point. Mr. Brem, are we understanding that the Wilders are looking to do this development of the lot themselves? They're not looking to, or are they selling the parcel and somebody else is going to develop this?
That's the case, and I think they're in the line. So if I'm speaking out of turn, put your hand up and Sierra will unmute you. But yeah, they intend to sell both the property at 8 Flag Road and then this newer on lot 1, and then this newer lot to at least one person, possibly 2 different people. The developer of the empty lot 2 would be responsible for whatever improvements that we decide to make to the bulb roadway here and to the lot 2. So there would be a responsible party, and basically I think the new owner of lot 8 would just continue to use the existing driveway until the developer built whatever we decide to design. As far as that comment goes, this is a very preliminary plan. That's all it is. We will have much more detailed plans, the commenters that you've already seen, and in those plans they will be required to follow those plans, and this board is very good, and so is the engineering department, in making sure that everything that's on the plan gets built. And if it's not, it comes back. You've already heard, if you've been at this meeting, some changes that other people have wanted to do. It always goes through either administrative review. It's a very formalized process, so you could be assured that once a final plan is approved, that they have to build it.
But I would like to interject that there's a limit to what the review will entail. It's basically technical things. And so we can ask the developer or to put the house in a certain location, but we can't necessarily require it unless it's needed for something like stormwater. As for tree clearing, again, it's up to the owner unless trees are required to stay there for stormwater or for other reasons. So I appreciate your concerns, but don't expect the almighty from us.
It's
No,
also
but-
not a given we will grant all the waivers.
Right.
Right.
So, Mr. Chair, there was a Paul Starrett, town engineer. There was and I'm sensitive to the questions about process from residents.
Yep.
And just to be clear, if I can do it, but there are others here that are more qualified to speak to that process where this is just a preliminary, so I can imagine the residents are wondering what happens next. Does this get shoehorned in? Does this just happen? Is this tonight? So if someone could speak to the process to give the residents assurance that, that there are things that are going to happen.
Sure. Joe or Sierra, do you want to detail the process, or? I mean, basically as a preliminary plan, we will wind up, this will essentially shape the applicant's direction. The conversation we're having this evening, they'll come back to us with a more formalized plan, and then that would start an official public hearing process, right?
Correct, Mr. Chair. So at this point, I think Mr. Bram alluded to this already. You kind of have this conceptual plan in front of you that they would like to do. The alternative B that they shown was something that they theoretically could do under the definitive subdivision rules and regulations. But their preference is to do option A. If the board, based on the feedback that they receive, if the board is in favor of one alternative versus another, they'll dive in, they'll start going down the design path of seeing and making sure that they can do the alternative that the board prefers. And from there, it would be more formal applications, more formal review by this board, by town engineering and other town departments. And everybody would be looking to whatever the rules and regulations that the applicant has to follow for whatever the board approves. And whoever builds it has to build whatever is approved by the board.
Right.
And I would only inject that there is also an appeal process as well.
Right. I saw, hold on a minute, I'm trying to make sure I can see. There was a chat question.
Yes.
I think one of comment on typical timeframes. I mean, what I was going to say about the time frame is it really kind of depends on how quickly the applicant would come back to us with an official, application. Between the preliminary process and the definitive process, it could be fairly short, or it could span several months before we actually see a definitive subdivision plan. We've seen both, at least in my time on the board. I guess, Joe, and keep me honest here, I would say once a definitive plan is before us, actually, I would actually say to the board, for something this size, I would say we usually have at least maybe between 2 and 4 conversations on the topic before we move to a final decision. Does that sound fair, Kate? So I guess the point to the person who made the comment is, that there will be several other meetings and several other opportunities for you to see a revised and increasingly more detailed set of plans and put your comments on public record with regard to what's being proposed.
And on the practical side, again, Paul Starrett, town engineer, the practical side of this is that the designer, the applicant, the owner, all have timetables of their own, in terms of real estate transactions, availability of contractors, construction seasons. So they target to do their work in the permitting process now in the winter months, so that ideally they could get into the ground in the spring, if that's what the applicant isn't obligated to tell us that timetable. But, that's also a consideration. It's just the practical approach to when you could build something.
Right.
You all make good points. Can I just comment a little bit? So,
sure, please, Mr.
And I know you got a bit other things to talk about, so I'll be quick. Yes, the Wilders really need to want to move out of number 8, and they can't sell that until this is created. So it's one of those things, the cart before the horse. They can't move until the subdivision is done. So they're obviously in a short time frame, but then reality sets in, like Paul mentioned, not just with the construction seasons and contracts and loan requirements and so forth, but there's also If we were to file a definitive subdivision plan tomorrow, we would miss the March 7th meeting just by the 30-day window. And the soonest we would get in front of the board for definitive is March 21st. Well, we're not going to be submitting tomorrow, obviously, because we're not, and we wouldn't even be submitting 2 or 3 weeks from now. So we're probably not going to make the March meetings at all. And so the first meeting you'll see us in is in April, and then extend what Darren set out, 2 to 4 meetings. That's 1 to 2 months from the beginning of April. So you're looking at beginning of May, beginning of June. This project will be approved probably the earliest sometime in June. So I hope that helps out.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fair.
And if I may just briefly add one thing, Mr. Chair, in case
Please.
this was not already specifically stated, because I know we do have a number of residents, abutters in the audience tonight. But they will be notified all over again when the definitive process starts. You will get a brand new notification in the mail to your house, to all of the parties of interest, stating the date of the meeting and that it is a public hearing. So you will be made aware of it, if and when it gets to that stage.
Residents can also sign up on the westfordma.gov/subscriber to get any of the town's agendas from the select board, planning board, conservation. You can also sign up to just get an email with those notifications as well on the town website.
I'm gonna take a shot at- Go ahead.
Sorry.
Nope, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say, if I may, if we could go back to Mr. Feuersanger, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
He was originally unmuted to speak, but I think that the conversation went a little bit off, and I just want to give him the opportunity to speak again if he would like.
Sure.
And just to reiterate the point, it's going to be very intrusive to Alcorn, especially with the clearing of the trees so close to the road. It's definitely going to have a big visual impact on the road itself.
Yep.
And then at the beginning, Mr. Brim had mentioned that there was going to be a lot of waivers required for this project. I'm just curious to the board, how many waivers are typically allowed and how many are too many?
I would say that that's very project dependent. I don't know that there's no hard limit. So there's never like the board doesn't have its hands tied with regard to how many waivers we can approve on any application. And I would say that in general, this board considers each waiver request on its own merit and weighs in with its opinion on each of those. We've had some applications where we have seen and approved several waivers, 5 or even 6 waivers, maybe for a particular development. And then there's been other times when I think based upon the discourse that's happened between this board and an applicant, they may have come in requesting 5, 6, 7 waivers, and ultimately that gets reduced down to 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4 waivers. So I think in general, where we can, the board, not every waiver is created equal. I think there are certain waivers that the board is very comfortable with, and I think there's certain waivers that this board is very uncomfortable with. And we generally try to discourage applicants from pursuing waivers that we are uncomfortable with, I guess is how I would say it. But I would defer to the other board members to comment if they feel I've misstated that in any way.
It's definitely,
Very well done.
definitely project dependent.
Great.
The only thing I would add to that is that the waivers that we're looking for is only within the bulb. It's for the new roadway. So it's not the whole 6.7 acres, the whole project per se. It's the stuff that's on the right side of the plan in that bulb. That's where the waivers are.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any other comments, Mr.? I'm sorry, I've lost you. I don't.
Feuersanger. No, I do not.
Feuersanger. Okay, great. Oh, your hand is still up. Do you? Oh, no. Okay. Sarah, are there any new comments from anyone in the audience for 8 flag?
So we do have 2 hands raised.
Okay.
So I will ask your opinion on this, Mr. Chair. So one of them, appears to be a resident or a butter who did have their hand raised first. The other, however, is the owner. So I didn't know if it was proper to go to one or the other first.
Let's go to the person who hasn't spoken first, and then we'll go
Okay.
back to the person who had their hand up previously.
I'm sorry, I may have misspoken. We have two people with hands up. One is
Okay.
someone who hasn't spoken. The other one is the owners who
Okay.
I'm not sure whether they've spoken either, but
they've not. Then, you know what, let's go to the abutters and then we'll close with the owners of the parcel. How about that?
okay. All right, so I will go to, here we go.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, yes, hi, Laurie Cogliano. I'm over at 12 Alcorn Crossing,
Okay.
and I look to be at the spot where they said they may be putting the septic system.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, maybe the engineer can help us understand what that would do for our lot. We do have an in-ground swimming pool, and any change in the topography, I'm just very concerned about, you know, anything happening to our pool, our backyard, and any seepage, or I'm just wondering why the septic has to be way over there around the corner.
Okay.
I guess, Mr. Brem?
Sure. It's because I'll answer your last question first, which is that's the best soils and the best depth to groundwater. As your depth to groundwater is less and less, that means you need to bring in more and more fill and clear more trees and do more construction and create more erosion potential and so forth. So we try to go where the water is deepest, and that's where it was in this area. That's number one. Number two, we're still going to be, we could be as close as 10 feet under the regulations for septic systems, believe it or not. We're going to be way past that 25-foot setback. We're probably going to be 30 or 40 feet at the closest point to your property. So it's 3 or 4 times what's required by the state. And the requirements by the state are there to make sure that one septic system doesn't impinge negatively on their neighbors. So we will obviously have to comply with all the state and local rules on that, and that's what they're there for. Just like your septic system is designed so that it doesn't impact your neighbors on either side of yourself as well. So it won't have an impact on your swimming pool. It won't have an impact on you at all. That's what the regulations are all about. And we are 3 or 4 times further than what is required.
So that area happens to be a very steep hill. So would you have to flatten it?
We would be probably putting some fill on the downstream side. So yeah, it would have to be flattened. Yes, certainly. And that we do that by a little bit of cutting and a little bit of filling, depending on the final design of the septic.
And is that definitely the septic area, or is it still under discussion?
No, that's definitely, we've done official soil testing with the town.
And is it near that R line or whereabouts in that area?
Yeah, right where Sierra has their arrow right there. I mean, I haven't surveyed it yet. I'm going by this topography, which is GIS topography. It's not perfectly accurate. And I'm going by, what I've seen on the site compared to what I'm seeing on this topo map. But generally, it's in that area where the arrow is.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Sierra, let's go to, I think, Mrs. Wilder.
Hello,
Mrs. Wilder.
this is Jonathan Wilder.
Oh, hi, Mr. Wilder. Good evening.
Yeah, I want to thank the board for listening to this proposal. I can appreciate the neighbors' concern about the property and the change of the woods, because it's a beautiful spot. All right, we've been there 35 years, and it's something we got to do. And thank Jeff for explaining our position. It's pretty much as he describes. We try to do this without as little impact as possible on the neighbors, so we can appreciate their concerns. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Sierra, I do see a gentleman who spoke earlier has his hand up. We do have other topics to get to this evening, and as we sort of alluded to, this process is going to run for a while. So I guess we can take a quick comment, but I would like to keep us moving so that we can get through the rest of the agenda before midnight tonight.
We're going to come back to this. We're not going to vote on this tonight, correct?
That is correct. I don't think there's a vote required per se. Is there, Joe?
Yes, there is.
Oh, on which? Oh, A or B?
No, it's on the preliminary plan itself.
Yeah, but
Some point.
That's really
You
good.
have to vote. Go ahead.
Oh, all right.
No, sorry, go ahead.
We'll
I
eventually
have
need to vote on a preliminary plan. At this point, Mr. Brem can correct me if I'm misspeaking here. You seeking guidance from the board whether or not to pursue alternative A or alternative B.
That's
But
correct.
In our subdivision rules and regs, we have to vote on it, and we have to approve the concept. We have to approve with modifications, or we say we don't like it.
At this
So
point, I
you
think you could move, if the board wishes, to continue the matter to a later date. And at that point, Mr. Brem could continue, or whoever can continue to make the modifications to the plan based on whichever alternative you prefer. And then you'll be able to take further action from there.
Yeah, I thought several of us, maybe not all of us, had commented that we favored option A with the two more equally sized lots. So, I mean, I feel as if we've given him his preference, but if we want to do that as a vote, we certainly can. Sierra, back to the matter of, I don't see the hand up anymore.
Yes, sorry, I took his hand down. Mr. Wuson, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah. I just want to make a quick comments on this. So board members were talking about the regulation a lot, and then the plan is supposed to comply all the rules, but I don't know whether the rule consider the slope. We are talking about the stiffness of this here, the property a lot, and I think that should be considered in the decision as well. So that's my comments.
So yeah, and it will be. So again, we're at the preliminary stage. So at this point, the town engineering department, who the board relies on to give us the technical details on whether something being proposed is actually technically feasible and would be allowed based on the town's bylaws and our building standards and all of those things and our stormwater standards. That has not happened yet. So literally what we have is somebody coming before us saying, hey, we could go option A, option B, which do you prefer? And in some cases, even though the board may not like either one of them, we're obligated to give that feedback to the developer of which one, given two choices, maybe we don't like either one, we still have to give them that direction so that they can then go do some more work and come back with a definitive plan that requires review by the engineering department. I hope I'm making that clear, at which point, if the slope was too great to support that driveway, which is sort of where you're going with your comments, if that was the case, that would come out in engineering comments.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Paul Starrett, Town Engineer. And I should give the abutters and residents some assurances that there are bylaws here in Westford and state regulations from the Department of Environmental Protection that will prohibit this developer, the Wilders, or the applicants to do anything that has an adverse impact on other properties in terms of stormwater runoff. They can't flood your property. They can have a reasonable use of their property to develop it, of course, but there are a lot of things in place that will prevent someone from just coming in and doing whatever they want without any consideration of the consequences to the abutters. And they can't also, I should add, just tell us that there won't be any adverse consequences on paper and show us all kinds of calculations. They also have to perform in such a way that there are no, you're not flooding out or the septic system isn't just, compromising other people's properties. And the engineering department will pay attention to all those mind-numbing details.
And Kate has her hand up, which I will allow because she's on the board. So
I would like to say there is a process for preliminary design review, and it can be found in our subdivision rules and regulations in section 4. If anybody really cares, it tells what has to be done and what the board's obligations are.
thank you, Kate. Bob?
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure if we're going to vote tonight on this, but I'm not comfortable yet that the board has sufficiently debated and discussed the differences between A versus B. Because as I've been listening here to the discussion from Laurie Cogliano at 12 Alcorn, one of the things that occurs to me as I look at alternative B is there is a larger area back there in which the septic could potentially be placed. And I guess I would like to ask Mr. Brem whether or not it is possible to locate that septic field further up the hill and provide a larger buffer space to the Coglianos as well as to number 10.
Mr. Brem?
I apologize for not being able to pronounce the name.
Yeah, the rear lot line is not magic, so even on Plan A, we can move the rear lot line. As has been said, you could see the edge of the hill right there. You know, as those lines get closer together, the hill gets steeper. We've tested it basically at the base of the hill is what we did. So moving the lot line is not going to help you at all because right there we tested at the base of the hill. Moving the lot line to the right doesn't really add anything to there. The question then is, and I think that the board has already talked about it, what can we do to make it better for the abutters? Well, what we can do that the board can't require, but we could voluntarily do is we could put no cut zones and areas that we're not going to do any grading in. And that we could voluntarily do. Obviously, I don't have all those details right now with me on this plan. But I do suspect that the Wilders would have no problem in locating the house in such a way that we minimize the tree clearing. Most people nowadays don't want to buy big lawns, so the idea of creating a big front lawn, that's not really what anybody wants anyway. So we're all on the same page in that. The difference is the board cannot really do anything about that, but the applicant can. And the board actually can because they're giving waivers, and it's kind of a give and take. So what we would be proposing is some no cut zones and some tree clearing limits and grading that we would commit to by putting them in easements and other restrictions. So please know from the abutters, we can do those things, and I'm sure the Wilders are going to instruct me to do that.
I guess the other question I would have here is I notice, I mean, you have to have what, 200 feet between a proposed well and a septic field?
100.
100 feet. So I'm sitting here looking at the location of the well. Is it possible to flip the location so that the well is up the hill and the septic is closer to the proposed lot 2 dwelling?
Well, that's the problem that you're going to run into, Mr. Schaefer, is that when you do that now, you're cutting the whole front yard. And now the people at 10 Alcorn and then the person across the street, Mr. Fiersanger, is going to have a problem with that. So let me do my job in providing some setback relief with trees. I'm pretty comfortable. I could do a pretty good job and satisfy all the neighbors as best as I can. You know, I can't satisfy them all would be don't build anything, but I think we can build something and still have some decent buffers between the abutters.
So I guess relative to that comment, Mr. Brem, I would like to see on these alternatives what the proposed tree clearing is. That would, I think, help this board to better evaluate the 2 alternatives. Because in my head, I'm looking at the amount of tree clearing necessary to get a septic up the hill as a pretty long swath. I realize it might be a thin swath, but it's not clear to me until you say it that there's going to be more tree clearing for alternative B as opposed to alternative A. Because I just assumed there would be some clearing of trees in the front yard. And if we could place the septic there, that might actually lessen the amount of trees cleared on the whole parcel. And until we see that drawn out, it's not readily apparent to this board.
I could draw that out, but I will tell you that ultimately, Mr. Shaver, the difference between the two plans is not on the back. The back end is pretty much going to be the same. It's the front, it's the roadway. Do you want a 400-foot roadway that's shown on Plan B going up the hill, or would you allow a bulb and minimal work to the existing driveway, maybe making it a little wider, maybe paving it, which again is not shown here, but I could do that. And then have this Plan A, which is our preferred plan, to go forward into a definitive plan.
Yeah, and I guess that's what escapes me, Jeff. And by the way, it's Mr. Schaffer.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Schaffer.
What escapes me here is just, I mean, I see the notional layout of the road, but that doesn't actually mean what pavement will be put down. I mean, this is kind of a paper road at this point. So it would help us, I think, if we saw the tree clearing for the two options. And, you know, I appreciate what you're saying here with the alternative B with that bulb, but it's not clear to me, even with that, how much tree clearing is necessary to implement that. So,
Understood, and I could definitely do that.
all right, thank you. That's all I have. I guess I'd wait before we took a position on this, Darren. Dylan, I'm not comfortable with the information we have and what we're seeing to vote. And if we had to vote now, I would vote against either alternative. I want to see more information.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I'm going to take a stretch and ask for continuance to March 7th, if you don't mind.
Not a public hearing, don't have, it'll just show up as a discussion. Right, Dylan?
I think so. Joe, can you confirm?
You could take a vote to continue the public discussion to the March 7th meeting.
Okay.
moved.
Is it? Thank you. Is there a second? Motion and a second to continue this discussion to the March 7th meeting. All those in favor say aye. Bob? I saw him
Aye.
say. Thank
Aye.
you. Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. Mr. Brem, we look forward to hearing from you again in a month.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to general business item C, PB 2205, an ANR for 59 and 63 Hildreth Street. Yes. Do we have an applicant?
Sorry, I'm trying to go through and unmute.
Oh, take your time. Joe, any comments from town staff on this before we hear from the applicant?
Not a whole lot. It's really just a lot line adjustment between two lots, so there isn't a whole lot to it. But I think I saw Mr. Slager on earlier. I don't know if he's still around on here. I'm sure he'll have a comment or two as well.
Yes, sorry, I'm having a technical issue. Lots and lots of technical issues this evening. Apologize. Okay, so Mark, you should be able to speak now.
All right, I'm here and still awake.
Good evening, Mr. Slager.
Good evening, board members. Mark Slager from Allen Engineering here on behalf of Premium Homes, the owner of properties at 59 and 63 Hildreth Street. As Joe pointed out earlier, this is merely just a lot line adjustment, separating the properties at 59 and 63 so that we can create two buildable lots. Lot 1 is a 50,278 and lot 2 is about 7.6 and 65 acres with a lot of land that's essentially wetland with some upland areas that extends all the way up to Pacific Avenue to the northwest. Each lot is, the lots are in a Residence A zoning district. Each lot has 200 feet of frontage, so they're conventional lots. And they all have in excess of 200 feet at the front setback line. So we're asking for the board to endorse the plan as an approval not required.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the board. Anyone have any comments? Mike?
Nope, no comments. Looks good to me.
Great. Darren?
No comments.
Great. Kate?
No comments, just a question on the process. We're no longer under the COVID regulations, right? So the board members themselves will sign this rather than designating a staff member? Question.
If I may, of course, it is up to the board, but I believe the deadline to endorse the plan is tomorrow. So we would need we would need people to sign tomorrow. The other option is to vote, with the caveat that you'd give planning staff authority to sign on your behalf tomorrow.
Is that, we can still do that? Because I know we
Yes.
did that. Okay.
Anything else, Kate?
No.
Great. Bob?
No, given my current location, I plan to designate staff as being able to sign on my behalf.
Great.
And I want you to know, dawn has occurred. Sunrise occurred 10 minutes ago.
We can see it through the window behind you. Okay, so I also have no comments. Given that we don't have any comments and that we can delegate the signing of this A&R to town staff, is there a motion to approve and authorize the signing of the A&R to town staff?
I move that we approve PB 2205 A&R 59 and 63 Hilda Street and assign staff to sign on the behalf of the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you, Mr. Slager.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. And Bob, good morning.
Good morning.
All
And what
right.
you're actually seeing is my mirror behind me. It's not, I'm actually looking out at the scene.
Oh, that's not a window. Interesting. Okay. So general business item D is before us now. That is PB 2206. 1 Robbins Road, a request to authorize administrative review and approval for the construction and installation of a fuel cell generation system. Do we have an applicant in front of us?
Yes, Gregory Orris from Blue.
Great. Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Good evening, everyone.
All right.
All right. So do you want to give us an overview of your project?
Sure. Let me just, I know it's getting late, but I'll give you just a brief project description that pretty much lays out what we're proposing. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Gregory Orris. I am a senior planner with Bloom Energy. I'm responsible for obtaining land use approvals in the Northeast, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania just recently. In regard to this application before you this evening, Bloom Energy is proposing to construct 5 ES5 outdoor natural gas clean energy servers, solid oxide fuel generation systems, in a much easier term, Bloom Energy servers. Also associated ancillary equipment and retaining walls at the rear of the Nokia Corporation facility located at 1 Robbins Road. The 31-acre parcel is located in the IH Industrial Highway Zone. The purpose of the generators is to provide clean base load power generated at the site for the site as an alternative to solely pulling power from the existing energy grid. Compared to grid power, Bloom delivers enhanced sustainability benefits in many ways. High efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions reductions, avoided air pollutants, a small physical footprint, and reduced water use. Our aim at Bloom is to be a leader in the environmentally friendly 21st century energy revolution by creating highly customizable and adaptable at-site energy solutions for our customers, as opposed to the present energy grid, which is troubled by aging infrastructure, pollution, fire risk, and transmission loss over miles and miles of unsightly power lines. The energy server is able to work by converting fuel directly into electricity without the need of combustion, as a conventional electrical generator would. The process is quiet. The process is a quiet application. The only noise emitted is from cooling fans installed on top of each energy server. The electricity production involves an electrochemical reaction consisting of natural gas and air, which in turn reacts with solid oxide piles or wafers within the cells. within the energy server to produce clean energy. Bloom Energy is a leader in fuel cell technology with hundreds of energy servers installed throughout the Northeast and beyond. Unlike often unsightly mechanical equipment, we screen Bloom Energy fuel cells in an attractive steel casing designed to be aesthetically pleasing and to showcase our brand and thus our customers' commitment to the environment. The proposed server foundations will disturb approximately 3,875 square feet and will be located approximately 375 feet from the rear property line. The location selected is ideal because of its proximity to the existing facility's electrical infrastructure and its minimal aesthetic impact or effects on the business operations. We consider this a passive design of an active energy conservation system consistent with Westford zoning ordinance and plan. Additionally, Bloom Energy has been granted a temporary wetlands determination of non-applicability at the Westford Conservation Commission meeting in early December 2021. Hopefully, if Bloom Energy is granted an administrative approval this evening, the commission will be able to finalize the wetlands determination later this week. That's it. If you have any specific question, I can certainly answer them for you.
Great, thank you very much. Joe, before I go to the board, any comments from town staff?
Not a whole lot, Mr. Chair. The Conservation Commission, as mentioned, has looked at it. They just wanted to see if the plan board was going to have any comments of their own, make any changes to what's been proposed. It does seem to be fairly minor in scale of what's already there, but they did want to get any board feedback before they took action.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, let's go to the board for some comments. Bob, would you like to go first?
Sure. I guess the first question is, what is the fuel source is natural gas? Is that my correct understanding?
That is correct. It's from the facility, heated out of the facility into the fuel cell, yes.
Okay, and I saw that it's 60 to 80 gallons of water per day for startup. My question is, how often does the unit get shut down and start up?
Well, of course, there's an emergency situation that needs to be restarted. There's also yearly maintenance. About twice a year, they might come in and shut the system down for a few hours. And then again, they will use that 60 to 80 gallons of water to get the process going again. But water is not used for anything other than startup. It's not used for cooling on a daily basis.
And how does the water leave the system? Does it leave it in liquid or gaseous form?
It's through evaporation through the cooling fans on top of the servers.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions. Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, Bob. Kate?
I appreciate the explanation of what it all is because I looked at the plans and I'm like, I don't have a clue. So I'm happy to let this be administrative. I mean, it seems pretty simple. I don't understand the purpose of a lot of the plans. You don't have to tell me what they are tonight. So
all right,
that's it.
Thanks, Kate. Darren?
Oh, happy to see clean energy, and yeah, I think it's administrative review is fine.
Thanks, Darren. Mike?
Oh, just I want to make sure I understand the natural gas source is just the natural gas in the ground that a normal service.
Yeah, it comes directly from the building. There's a tap right up in the building into a meter. So it's an existing line from within the building.
All right, terrific. No, I have administrative as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Great. Yep, I also agree. Administrative review seems fine in this case. So is there a motion to approve PB 2206 for administrative review and approval for the construction and installation of a fuel cell generation system at 1 Robbins Road?
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry, Dylan.
What was that?
Jumping the gun, Darren.
All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob? Bob, you're muted, but we'll take your aye as aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I say aye. Thank you very much, Mr. Oros.
Thank you very much, folks. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
As well.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from the next.
Okay. All right. The next general business. Is that Mr. Brem? Hey, Sierra, would you possibly be able to, thank you. Okay, the next general business topic is item E, which is PB 2133, a definitive subdivision plan. No, wait. Oh, it's the Cloverleaf Field subdivision, a request to release lot C from the covenant. Attorney DeShane is with us. Good evening.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane from Finneran and Nicholson, representing George Allen and Sons, Inc. The board will recall that Mr. Allen and his son TJ filed the definitive subdivision off of 22 Griffin Road for the Cloverleaf Field subdivision. You'll recall we originally applied for 5 lots, plus we had lot C, which was an A&R lot with frontage only on Griffin Road. There was no frontage on the proposed Cloverleaf Lane for lot C. Lot C was always intended to be an A&R lot, as it was not part of the subdivision road. However, as you'll recall, in the course of the stormwater management discussions, the board indicated their preference that lot C be included in the stormwater system for the entire subdivision. My clients acquiesced to that, as I think they acquiesced to many of the requirements of the board, but they were certainly very cooperative and wanted to make things work. So we agreed to do that, and as you'll recall, we also had to get a common drive special permit in order to access the lot on a common drive rather than have its own driveway out to Griffin Road. Again, my clients acquiesced to that. We did get that common drive special permit. Please note that lot C is not subject to the planning board's winter work prohibition. It is also outside of the Conservation Commission's winter work 100-foot prohibition. And so it was always my client's intention that they would work on that lot over the winter. And then once spring came, they were allowed to work on the subdivision road. They would start the road in early spring and then eventually build the common drive to get to lot C. However, we are concerned at this point that if we seek a a building permit for lot C, we may not be able to if the building inspector concludes that the lot is subject to the restrictive covenant under Chapter 41, Section 81U of subdivision control law. So I'm here this evening to ask the board to either determine that lot C was not intended to be part of the covenant, or tell us what conditions under which the board would consider releasing lot C from the covenant in light of the fact that lot C has no frontage on the subdivision road. Its frontage is entirely on Griffin Road. In closing, I just want to say that I do believe my clients have been incredibly cooperative in working with the board. As you know, this was a conventional subdivision. It was not a special permit required subdivision, yet my clients were very generous in agreeing to provide the water department easements, not only providing a trail easement, but agreeing to build the trail, and then later agreeing to actually build a sidewalk along Griffin Road. Again, not a requirement of the subdivision, but something they were agreeable to doing for the benefit of the neighborhood. So at this point, they're just asking for the board's consideration in, again, either determining that lot C was not meant to be part of the covenant, or the conditions under which the board would be comfortable releasing the lot. I do want to point out one thing in our decision. There was a note made in the second provision of the decision that said lot C, originally considered separately, was later included in this project submission, i.e. under the stormwater management permit. So I think it's clear that it was always intended to be a separate lot. But again, in the spirit of cooperation, my clients have agreed to put it into the stormwater system, so it kind of got caught up into the whole subdivision approval. And they are just looking for an opportunity to work on that lot over the winter so that they can be prepared to start the roadway in the spring. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, we'll go to the board. Bob, would you like to go first?
I'm going to speak first on this one because it was my request. And Doug DeShane and the applicant did graciously agree to roll this from the A&R to move the driveway off of the subdivision road. So yeah, I'm in favor of this and I would find favorably with this request tonight. That's all I have to say.
Thanks. Kate?
So the main purpose of this would just be so that they have the opportunity to start construction sooner. Yeah. I mean, I have no problem. I just want to understand that.
Yes, Kate, just on lot C. No
Yep.
other, no, we're not asking to start the subdivision road early or any other lot, just the lot that has its frontage on Griffin Road, lot C.
Okay, no, I have no problem.
Darren?
Nope, I have no objection.
Great. I similarly have no objection. Attorney DeShane, do you sort of offered two paths in your letter to the board, either a release from the covenant or a determination from this board that lot C is not part of the, not part of the subdivision?
Correct. I know in speaking with Joe, there was a question raised to town council as to how the board could, if it so chose, how it could release lot C. I don't believe we've gotten a response, but to be honest, I just wanted to leave the opportunity open to the board to do it in whatever manner, again, if they so chose, that would do it. I think technically, a release of the covenant just for this lot would probably be the cleanest way to do it. That way I could record the release. And that way, if there were ever any questions down the road as to the application of the covenant, it would all be in recorded format at the registry where the covenant is recorded. So it would be the cleaner way of doing it.
Joe, I see you nodding your head. Is that approval from town staff? That's how you would like us to handle this?
I would say so, and maybe just have it subject to town council review and approval. Just given that we haven't heard back from town council yet, as Attorney Shane alluded to, we have reached out just to make sure everything is above board in releasing this one lot. So whatever legal instrument may be needed. We prefer it that way. So.
Got it. So is there a motion on PB 2133 to release lot C from the covenant, from the restrictive covenant pursuant to MGL C41 section 81U, pending feedback from town council?
Subject to town council review of the procedure and the release document.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and have a great evening. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, general business item F is in front of us. That's PB 1923, 73 Nutting Road, Wendell Place, endorsement of plans and execution of the covenant. Joe, anything on this? Do we have, I see we have the applicant with us. Good evening, Ms. Coyle. Is there any background we need to consider, or we're just?
I can provide a quick bit of background if you like, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So we have received plans from Land Tech, gone back and forth with them, received legal documents from the applicant's legal team. It was, again, Attorney DeShane's office. We feel like we have the plans and the covenant that's needed to get endorsed. At this point, there will be additional documents, prior to construction that'll have to get reviewed and approved. But to get to this point, endorsing the plans, signing the covenant, we feel as though we have what we need.
Great. I'll go to the board for any comments that we may have. Darren, do you have anything?
I have no comments on this one.
Okay. Kate?
And no, I assume that engineering and all staff, the appropriate staff have reviewed the plans and this cover sheet has everything it's required and all the other plans and such. And the question again, what timeline do we have for signing these? And so it sounds as though we all have to go to town hall to sign this.
Or we could authorize.
No, we can't do that.
Covenants, you'll have to all come in. There's no
Yeah.
hard, fast deadline per se for when you all have to come in. It's not like you have to all come in tomorrow. Obviously, the sooner you can, I'm sure the applicant would prefer that.
But we have a cutoff. It has to be done within a certain time, right? Or could we do it at our next meeting, or would that inconvenience the applicant if we did that?
I don't know if the applicant wishes to speak on it. I can certainly get back to you on that to see if there is some sort of date final that you have to come in and sign it. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, but
The applicant is delighted with how things have gone so far. Very much appreciate everything staff has done. Whenever it is that you can reasonably sign this, works for us. Thank you very much.
but like our next meeting isn't until March 7th. So would that hold you back from doing something if we waited until then to sign it?
Another month would be a challenge. But I
Okay.
could work with it if that's the only alternate.
I mean, I'm amenable to going in to town hall. So.
Yeah, I mean, we can get it. I can get in there.
We'll go there when we get a chance next week or two.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Might be difficult for Bob, but the rest of us could. Yeah.
Where is Bob where the sun's coming up?
I am in Doha. Qatar.
Halfway across the world.
Yeah.
Great airport.
Yes, fabulous.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the plan set for 73 Nutting Road and approve endorsement? We have to take a vote on this, even though we normally sign this as well, I believe. So is there a motion?
Moved.
I move that we endorse the plans for 73 Nutting Road, Wendell Place, and that we approve execution of the covenant, which I assume we also have to go in and sign.
We do.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. And we will, I guess, Joe, you'll let us know if we're up against a hard deadline. We will do our best to those of us who are in country to get up to town hall in the next week or two and sign things.
Yep, we'll do.
Yep, send us a reminder.
Yep. Ms. Coyle, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. That brings us to the end of general business. We are officially in the home stretch now. So we have a review of draft minutes. We have both the December 20th and the January 3rd minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 20th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
No?
No.
Seeing none. All those in favor to approve the minutes say aye. Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Abstain.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, moving on to the minutes of January 3rd, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve January 3rd's minutes. Is there any discussion?
No,
All right, motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye. Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Kate,
aye.
Darren,
Aye.
and I say aye. Okay, that brings us to correspondence, reports, and updates. We had a few things, and Kate, you mentioned you wanted to make a comment at this point.
Yeah, the subdivision rules and regulations working group, we've met a few times and we are working our way through section 4, which is the procedures for submissions for preliminary A&Rs and definitive plans. And so I talked with Jeff Morissette, and he thought that after this meeting, we're hoping staff will have time to finish redlining a copy of the document so that the committee can then review it. We have to just finish up reviewing the definitive plan section, and then we'll add that. So we're hoping that maybe in the April or so timeframe, we can come back to you, the board, and maybe do a formal review of just section 4 changes. And then I'm thinking, since staff now has a lot of new things on their plate with the multi-housing requirements that we have to work on, that work with staff on timing and their schedules, and we'll play it by ear on when we can work on the section 5, which are the design criteria. So, but we want to have some forward momentum. So we're hoping by April we can at least do one section.
Sounds good.
And since it's on the public record, I'm holding staff to it.
Yep. Anything else on that, Kate?
No.
Okay, thank you. You know, there's obviously 2 other pieces of correspondence in there, one of which is obviously the letter to the select board regarding topic that we had on our agenda the last time we met, regarding the what is it, the Housing Choice Act, which obviously, as we all know, we'll be hearing much more about in the months and meetings to come. I had a quick question regarding the earlier item in the packet that I just would like quickly the board's feedback on. I know that in speaking with town staff, there is some desire, I think, but from Jennifer, I think it's Claro from the Cameron Senior Center, to potentially come in and maybe have a brief conversation with the board regarding the contents of the letter about the, I guess, I don't know if it's called the Stony Brook. I don't know if it's condominiums or if it's like it's the Stony Brook developments that are down near the school there, and some historical issues there have seemed to have been with maintenance and upkeep of the property. Is the board open to having her in at some point when we have a light agenda and hearing some of the concerns? It was unclear to me what, if any, actions we could take as a board, but I thought it might be worth giving her some time if we had an agenda with you know, a lighter agenda some point to come in and share with us what's going on down there.
I'd say absolutely. You know, they've got concerns, they want to come in. I'd listen to what she has to say.
Yeah.
And you never know, it might give us some ideas for future senior housing developments that come before us.
Yeah.
Well, I guess as somebody who sat on the board at the time when we approved that, and who helped write a lot of the bylaws that came in under, even if we can't address these problems at this time for the existing, although I hope we could do something, I think we need to collect some lessons learned and see if there's anything we can do in the future of how we approve these to somehow prevent this from happening in the future.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
Talk to her.
Yep. Thanks. No, I had no problem inviting her in. I think I knew this agenda was very, very full tonight, and I thought we were going to go pretty late. So Joe, I guess let's you know, to the extent that you guys are in touch with Jennifer from the Cameron Senior Center, the director of the Cameron Senior Center, maybe we can line her up for an upcoming meeting in March. If one of the 2 meetings in March has a slightly later agenda where we're not going quite so late, let's have her join us and give us some details.
Will do.
Great, thanks very much. With that, great job, team. We got through it just a little bit before 11 o'clock. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Darren?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you, Sierra. Thank you, Joe. Great work tonight.
Have a good day, Bob. Good night, everybody else.
Have a good day, Bob.
Good night.
Thanks all.
It's
Nice
a
work.
national holiday here.